The wine glass sat untouched in front of me, a 2015 Cabernet that probably cost more than my last textbook. My father's laugh boomed across our mahogany dining table, the same cruel sound that had echoed through my childhood whenever I dared to dream too big. "A surgeon? Come now, Sarah, that's a bit much for a girl, isn't it? I'm Sarah Newton, and this was the night I learned my medical school fund had been emptied to pay for my sister's wedding. 10 years later, I still remember how the silverware clinked against bone china while my future shattered. Daddy's right, Paige simpered, twisting her new engagement ring. Medical school is so intense and expensive. You'd be much happier teaching like we talked about. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. We didn't talk about anything, I said. You and Mum talked about me while I was studying for my MCATs. Mum adjusted her pearl necklace, a nervous tell I'd watched for years. Sarah, dear, your sister's wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event, and James's family, well, we need to make the right impression. My education fund, I said slowly, is going to ice sculptures and dove releases. Now! Dad's voice carried that warning tone, the one that meant I was being difficult. We've already put down deposits. Paige's future in-laws are very particular about these things. You understand. Actually, I don't. I stood up, my chair scraping against hardwood. I don't understand how my entire future is worth less than Paige's one day of playing princess. Sarah, Mum gasped, that's not fair to your sister. Fair? I laughed, and it sounded foreign even to me. I've maintained a 4.0 GPA, I've volunteered at 3 hospitals, I've done everything right, everything you asked, and you're just... What, giving away my chance? You're being dramatic, Dad said, cutting into his steak. There are plenty of other careers. Teaching, like Paige suggested. Nursing, maybe. Something more suitable. Suitable for what? Being female? For someone who needs to think about family eventually, he replied. These surgeon dreams, they're unrealistic. You'd never have time for children, for a proper home life. Paige touched my arm. I know it seems unfair now, but you'll thank us later. When you have your own family, you'll understand why. I jerked away. Stop talking about my future like you own it. That's enough! Dad's fist hit the table. Wine glasses trembled. You're acting like a child. We're your parents. We know what's best. I looked at each of them. Dad, red-faced and certain. Mum, carefully examining her plate. Paige, wearing concerned sister like it was another designer accessory. You know what's funny? I said, reaching for my purse. You're right, I am being dramatic, because this isn't a discussion about my future. I stood up. This is the last time you'll ever see me. Don't be ridiculous, Mom said. Sit down and finish your dinner. I'm done, I said, with dinner, with this family, with all of it. Dad's chair scraped back. If you walk out that door, young lady. You'll what? Take away my education fund? I smiled, and it felt like breaking glass. Too late. I walked to the door, my heels clicking against hardwood like a countdown. Behind me, Paige called out, Sarah, please don't ruin my engagement dinner. I turned back one last time. You know what the difference is between us, Paige. You'll spend your wedding day becoming someone's wife. I'll spend the rest of my life becoming myself. The door slammed behind me with satisfying finality. Outside, the summer air felt electric against my skin. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear, crystal clear. I pulled out my phone and dialed the one person who'd always believed in me. Ren, it's me. Remember how you said your couch was always available if I needed it? Sarah, what happened? They gave away my medical school fund to pay for Paige's wedding. Silence crackled over the line. Then, get over here, now. We're planning your revenge. Revenge? Yeah, we're going to make you so successful they choke on it. I looked back at the house, at the warm light spilling from windows that no longer felt like home. Through the dining room window I could see them, still eating, still talking, probably already dismissing my exit as another dramatic Sarah moment. You know what? I said, starting my car. They think being a surgeon is too much for a girl. Fine. I'll become the kind of surgeon they have to beg for. I pulled away from the curb, leaving behind an untouched glass of wine and a family that would regret every word, every laugh, every dismissal. They just didn't know it yet. "You're running on fumes, Sarah." I glanced up from the medical journal I was reviewing, my eyes burning from another 18-hour shift. Nathan stood in the doorway of the on-call room, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "No," I said, accepting one. "I'm running on rage. There's a difference." 10 years had passed since that dinner. 10 years of sleeping on Wren's couch, working 3 jobs between classes, and fighting my way through a system that seemed designed to break me. But here I was, preparing for another groundbreaking surgery, while my colleagues whispered about the miracle worker in vascular. "Your next patient's here," Nathan said, sitting beside me. "Another impossible case. Why do they always send those to you?" I smiled. "Because I'm the best, and because I never say no." The memory hit me then, my first year of med school, working the night shift at a 24-hour diner. I'd fallen asleep during morning lectures more times than I could count, but I never missed a single one. "Order up!" I'd call, balancing plates while highlighting textbook passages tucked behind the counter. The regulars learned not to bother me during study time. The manager wasn't as understanding. "This is a restaurant, not a library," he'd said, tossing my books in the break room. I quit that night, found a better job bartending. At least there I could study during slow hours. Nathan's voice pulled me back. "The surgical board's talking about you again. That last procedure you developed, they're calling it revolutionary." "Good." I stood up, straightening my scrubs. "Maybe they'll finally send that plaque to the right address." Another flash, last year's International Surgical Forum. I presented my findings on microvascular reconstruction, techniques no one else had dared to try. Standing ovation, awards, recognition. They'd mailed everything to my parents' house, my old address still listed in some database. I never asked if they'd opened it, never called to find out if they'd even noticed their daughter's name making medical history. "Dr. Newton?" An intern appeared at the door. "The patient's prepped and ready." In the OR, everything else fell away. This was where I belonged, where no one questioned if it was too much for a girl. The scalpel didn't care about gender, neither did the lives I saved. "Clamp," I said, and the instrument appeared in my hand like magic. This was my element, my revenge. Every successful surgery was another middle finger to everyone who said I couldn't. 4 hours later, I was writing up my notes when my phone buzzed. A voicemail from Paige. I nearly deleted it without listening. "Sarah, it's me. I know it's been years, but it's Mom. Please call me back. Please, we need you." I played it again. There was something in her voice, real fear, not the manufactured drama she usually traded in. "You okay?" Nathan appeared beside me, concern etched on his face. We'd dated briefly 2 years ago, before he'd grown tired of competing with my walls. Now we were just colleagues who carried too much history. My sister called, something about my mother. "Are you going to call back?" I stared at the phone. "They haven't needed me for 10 years. Why start now?" "Maybe because you're the best?" He touched my shoulder briefly. "The Sarah Newton who revolutionized vascular surgery, the one who just saved another impossible case." I laughed bitterly. "You mean the one they thought should be a teacher?" "No," he said quietly. "The one who proved them wrong." My pager beeped. Another consultation, another life hanging in the balance, another chance to be too much. "Whatever it is," I told Nathan, "they can find another doctor. I'm busy saving people who didn't throw away my future." But as I walked away, Paige's voice echoed in my head. The fear, the desperation. Part of me, the part that still remembered being a daughter, wanted to call back. The bigger part remembered working as a night security guard during my residency, drinking gas station coffee to stay awake during rounds. Remembered Wren bringing me groceries when I couldn't afford food. Remembered every sacrifice, every humiliation, every moment of proving myself while my family enjoyed Paige's perfect wedding. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. "Sarah, please. The doctor's here. They say you're the only one who might be able to help. Mum's dying. Please, we need you. We were wrong. We were so wrong." I deleted the message and walked into my next consultation, but my hands were shaking, and it wasn't from the coffee. They needed me now. Fine. But this time, I'd be the one setting the terms. This time, I'd be too much on purpose. I pulled out my phone and texted Paige back. "Send me the medical files, all of them, then we'll talk." The medical files arrived at 3 a.m. I sat in my office, scrolling through images that made my stomach clench. Mum's condition was rare, a complex vascular malformation that was slowly strangling her brain. The kind of case that ended up in medical journals, usually with the word fatal attached. My phone rang. Paige again. "Have you looked at them?" Her voice was raw, like she'd been crying. "I'm looking now." I kept my voice clinical, detached. "Who's tried operating?" 3 surgeons. They all said the same thing. "It's too risky." Then one of them mentioned your name, said you'd pioneered techniques for cases like this. I closed my eyes, remembering Dad's words. Too much for a girl. Now here they were, desperate for exactly what they'd tried to prevent me from becoming. "Sarah," Paige's voice cracked, "are you still there?" "The surgeons were right," I said. "It's extremely high risk. The success rate—" "Please," she interrupted, "just come see her, even if you decide not to operate. She asks for you, you know. When the pain medication makes her confused, she calls for you." My laugh was bitter. "Funny. She wasn't calling for me when you all emptied my future into your wedding fund." Silence stretched between us. Then, "I tried to give it back. After the wedding, I wanted to write you a check, but Dad wouldn't let me have your address." "Save it," I said. "I don't need your guilt money now." "Then what do you need?" Her voice hardened. "Tell me what it would take to get you here. Name your price." I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Full medical authority, legal documentation giving me complete control over her care. No interference from Dad, from you, from anyone. I make all the decisions. "Done," she said immediately. "Whatever you want." "I mean it, Paige. One word from Dad about what's suitable for a woman doctor, one attempt to control the situation, and I'm gone." "I'll handle Dad. Just please come." I hung up without answering and called Ren. "They're desperate," I told her. "Mum's dying, and apparently I'm their last hope." "Calm as a bitch," Ren said. "Are you going?" "I don't know. Should I?" "Wrong question. Can you live with yourself if you don't?" The memory surfaced unbidden. Me at 16, reading medical textbooks under my covers with a flashlight. Dad had caught me once. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "Learning about the cardiovascular system," I'd said proudly, showing him the diagram. He'd closed the book. "This isn't for you, Sarah. Focus on something more appropriate." Now, looking at Mum's scans, I could name every vessel, every potential complication. I was exactly what he'd tried to prevent me from becoming. "I'll need a lawyer," I told Ren. "Someone to draft ironclad paperwork about medical authority." "Already on it," she said. "I'll email you the documents in an hour. Make them suffer a little before you sign." Ray, the hospital administrator, was surprisingly supportive when I requested emergency leave. "Take whatever time you need," she said, "but Sarah, don't let this break you. Some wounds don't heal better just because you get to be the one holding the knife." I booked a flight for the next morning. As I packed my bag, Nathan appeared in my doorway. "I heard," he said simply. "Want company? I could assist if you decide to operate." "Why would you do that?" He shrugged. "Because you're the best surgeon I know, and because 10 years ago someone told you this was too much for a girl. I want to watch you prove them wrong." I zipped my bag closed. "I haven't decided if I'm operating." "Yes, you have," he said quietly. "You decided the moment you saw those scans, because you're not just angry anymore, Sarah. You're exactly what they were afraid you'd become, someone who saves lives whether they deserve it or not." My phone buzzed with Ren's email, legal documents requiring signatures from my entire family, giving me complete control. "Fine," I told Nathan, "book your ticket, but remember, this isn't about healing family wounds. This is about showing them exactly what they tried to throw away." He nodded. "I know, just remember something. The best revenge isn't making them sorry. It's making them irrelevant. I shouldered my bag, thinking of Mum's scans, of Dad's dismissal, of Paige's wedding, of every moment that had fueled me to this point. They're already irrelevant, I said. Now they just need to know it. I walked out of my office toward a confrontation 10 years in the making. They wanted the daughter they'd thrown away? Fine. But they were getting the surgeon instead. The hospital waiting room smelled like artificial lavender and old regrets. Dad stood as I entered, his hair greyer than I remembered, his shoulders stooped with age and worry. Paige sat beside him, perfectly manicured fingers twisting a tissue. "Sarah," he said, stepping forward, "thank God you—" I held up my hand. "The paperwork first." "Now really," he started, that familiar tone of authority creeping in. "We should discuss—" "No." I pulled out the documents Wren had prepared. "You sign these or I walk. Your choice." Paige grabbed the papers before Dad could object. "Where do we sign?" I watched them read through the terms. Full medical authority, complete decision-making power, no interference in my medical judgments. Dad's face darkened with each paragraph. "This is ridiculous," he sputtered. "We're her family. You can't expect us to—" "Actually, I can." I crossed my arms. "You wanted the best surgeon available? This is how you get her, or should I call a cab back to the airport?" Paige thrust a pen at him. "Sign it, Dad, please." His hand shook as he scrawled his signature. 10 years ago he would have thrown the papers in my face. Amazing what desperation could do. Nathan appeared beside me, his presence steady and grounding. "Dr. Newton, they're ready for your initial consultation." Dad's head snapped up. "Who's this?" "Dr. Fox," Nathan said smoothly. "I'll be assisting Dr. Newton during the procedure." "Procedure?" Dad stood straighter. "Now wait just a minute. We haven't agreed to any—" "Actually," I cut in, holding up the signed papers, "you just did. Nathan, let's examine the patient." Mom lay unconscious in the ICU, monitors beeping steadily. She looked small against the white sheets, her elegant facade stripped away by illness. I checked her vitals, reviewed her charts, my professional mask firmly in place. "Sarah?" Her eyes fluttered open. "Is it really you?" "It's me." I kept my voice neutral. "I need to examine you." "I knew you'd come," she whispered. "I told him you'd become important." "I need you to follow my finger with your eyes," I said, ignoring the comment. This wasn't a reunion. This was a medical examination. After completing my assessment, I stepped into the hallway where my family waited. Wren had arrived, looking fierce in her lawyer suit. "The surgery has a 28% success rate," I announced clinically. "Any slight error could be fatal. Without it, she has maybe 2 weeks." 28%? Dad's voice cracked. "But you're supposed to be the best." "I am the best," I said coldly. "That's why other surgeons quoted you 0%. Now, as her medical proxy, I need to inform you of my decision." Paige gripped Dad's arm. "Which is?" "I'll operate tomorrow morning. If she survives, she'll need extensive rehabilitation. If she doesn't—" I met Dad's eyes. "Well, at least you'll know a girl tried her best." He flinched. Paige started crying. Nathan touched my elbow, a silent reminder to stay professional. "Dr. Fox will review the consent forms with you," I continued. "I have preparations to make." "Sarah, wait," Dad called as I turned to leave. I was wrong. About you. About everything." I looked back at him, this man who had shaped my life by trying to limit it. "Yes," I said simply. "You were." In the doctor's lounge, Wren found me staring at my mother's scans. "You wanted them to grovel," she said quietly. "Just remember, if you twist them too far, they'll break, and so might you." "I'm not twisting anything," I replied. "I'm doing my job, the one they said I couldn't handle." Later that night, I returned to Mum's room. The night shift nurses had dimmed the lights, and the monitors cast a soft glow over her sleeping face. "Did you ever miss me?" I whispered to her unconscious form. Or just the image of what I was supposed to be? She stirred slightly but didn't wake. I checked her latest readings, making notes for tomorrow's surgery. One wrong move, one slight tremor, and she would die under my hands. Nathan appeared in the doorway. "Pre-op team is ready for briefing." I nodded, taking one last look at my mother. 10 years ago, she had sat silently while they stole my dreams. Tomorrow, her life would literally be in my hands. "Coming," I said, straightening my white coat. "Let's make sure everyone knows exactly what we're dealing with." As I walked out, I heard Mom murmur in her sleep, "I'm sorry, Sarah. Too little, too late." Tomorrow wasn't about forgiveness. It was about proving, once and for all, that I had become exactly what they feared, someone they needed more than I needed them. "I want to save her," I told Nathan as we reviewed the surgical plan. "But I want them to feel afraid first. Is that monstrous?" We were alone in the conference room, surrounded by brain scans and surgical diagrams. Dawn was still hours away. "It's human," he said, not looking up from his notes. "But it's not you." "You don't know who I am anymore." "I know you've never lost a patient because of pride." He finally met my eyes. "Don't make your mother the first." A knock interrupted us. Paige stood in the doorway looking haunted. "Can we talk?" Nathan gathered his papers. "I'll check on the OR prep." Once he left, Paige collapsed into a chair. She smelled like expensive perfume and whiskey. "Remember when we were kids? How I used to steal your books?" "To hide them from Dad," I said. "Not exactly sisterly protection." "No." She pulled out a flask, took a swig. "I was jealous. You were so sure about everything, about who you wanted to be. Until you let them take it away. They were going to take it anyway." She slammed the flask down. Dad had already decided the wedding fund, that was Mum's idea, to at least make it look like the money went somewhere instead of him just refusing. I felt the floor shift under me. What? Mum tried to change his mind after the wedding. She even offered to sell her jewellery collection to help pay for your school. Paige laughed bitterly. Dad said he'd rather burn the money than waste it on female surgical fantasies. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I'm drunk enough to be honest, and because—" She wiped her eyes. "I didn't want that wedding, not like that, not with your future paying for it." "But you took it anyway." "I did, because I was weak, because it was easier to be what they wanted." She looked at me with bloodshot eyes. "You know what the worst part is? Every time you make headlines for some amazing surgery, Dad says it must be exaggerated, that no daughter of his could be that important." My pager beeped, a pre-op notification. In 6 hours I'd have my mother's life in my hands. "I should go," I said, standing. "Sarah," Paige grabbed my arm, "I know it doesn't fix anything, but I'm going to pay you back, every cent, with interest." "Keep your money," I said. I didn't become a surgeon for the paycheck. I headed to my temporary office, but found myself walking to Mum's room instead. A nurse was checking her vitals. "Dr. Newton," she said, "there's something you should see. We found this in her personal effects." She handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter, dated 3 days ago. "If you're reading this, Sarah, I didn't know how else to say it." My hands shook as I read Mum's careful handwriting. "I failed you. Not just about school, about everything. I was raised to believe silence was a wife's duty. Your father's word was law in our house, just like my father's word was law in my childhood home. But watching you fight, watching you succeed despite us, you showed me what strength really looks like. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm telling you I was wrong. You weren't too much. We were too small." The letter continued, but my vision blurred. Wren's words echoed in my head. "Closure doesn't mean they say sorry. It means you get to stop asking why." Nathan found me there, still holding the letter. "Everything okay?" "No," I said honestly, "but it will be, after tomorrow." "About tomorrow?" He hesitated. "The surgical plan you proposed? It's brilliant, dangerous but brilliant. No one else would dare try it." "Are you saying you won't assist?" I'm saying I've never seen anything like it, or anyone like you. He touched my shoulder. Get some rest. Tomorrow we make history. I folded the letter carefully. Or we kill my mother. No, he said firmly. Tomorrow you save her. Not because she deserves it, but because that's who you are. The best surgeon I know. The one who takes impossible cases and makes them possible. I looked at my mother's sleeping form, then at the letter, then at my steady surgeon's hands. Okay, I said, but first I need to review one more thing. The approach to the tertiary vessels? No. I pulled out my phone. I need to see if that jewellery collection she mentioned is still worth anything, because if I save her, she's going to help me start a scholarship fund for girls with surgical fantasies. Nathan smiled. Now that's the kind of revenge I can assist with. I tucked the letter away and turned to the medical charts. Tomorrow would change everything, one way or another, and this time I was the one holding the power to reshape our family's future. The letter wasn't an apology, I told Wren, as we sat in the hospital cafeteria at 4 a.m. Surgery was scheduled for 7. She regrets her weakness, not her silence. Closure doesn't mean they say sorry, Wren replied, pushing a coffee toward me. It means you get to stop asking why. I'm not looking for closure. I'm looking for... I trailed off, unable to name what I wanted. Validation? Justice? A reason to finally let go of all that rage that's been fueling you? The coffee burned my tongue. 3 hours until I had to be perfect. Until my mother's life depended on the career they tried to prevent. Nathan burst into the cafeteria. Sarah, we have a problem. I followed him to the pre-op room where Dad was arguing with a nurse. Demand a second opinion. These risk factors... What's going on? I asked, my voice cutting through his protests. He's trying to stop the surgery, the nurse said, demanding we wait for another surgeon. I pulled out the signed papers. This document gives me full medical authority. Your opinion is noted and irrelevant. She's my wife. Dad's face was red. You can't just... Actually, I can, and if you continue interfering with my patient's care, I'll have security remove you from the hospital. Patient? He stepped closer. She's your mother. No, I said coldly. Right now, she's a critical case requiring specialised vascular intervention, and you're disrupting her care team's preparation. Paige appeared, pulling at Dad's arm. Come on, you're making it worse. I'm making it worse? He yanked free. Your sister is about to perform experimental surgery on your mother, and I'm making it worse? Experimental, I laughed. I pioneered this technique 3 years ago. It's been successfully replicated in 4 countries. Would you like to see my published papers, the international awards, or are those still too much for a girl? The silence that followed was deafening. Dad seemed to deflate, aging years in seconds. I can't lose her, he whispered. For a moment, just a moment, I felt sorry for him. Then I remembered every dream he'd crushed, every dismissal, every time he'd made me feel small. Then it's fortunate, I said, that I'm exactly what you tried to prevent me from becoming. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to prep for surgery. In the scrub room, Nathan watched me methodically clean my hands. You okay? Ask me after the surgery. Sarah. He waited until I looked at him. The approach you're planning, even I have doubts. Because it's too risky. Because no one else would attempt it. The margin for error is microscopic. I dried my hands, remembering every late-night study session, every extra shift, every moment that led to this. Good thing I'm not just anyone. The OR team was waiting. Every person there knew this was a career-defining moment. Success would cement my reputation. Failure would haunt me forever. Blood products ready, I asked. 6 units typed and crossed. Imaging. Real-time vascular mapping standing by. Monitoring. All systems calibrated. I took a deep breath, looking at the unconscious form of my mother. The woman who had watched silently as my dreams were sacrificed. who had written a letter explaining her weakness instead of defending her daughter. Nathan appeared at my shoulder. "Last chance to modify the approach." "No," I said, "we do it my way, the impossible way, the way no one else would dare try." Through the observation window, I could see Paige and Dad watching. Wren stood with them, her presence a reminder of everything that had brought me here. A nurse started the surgical countdown. "Time check, 7 a.m, beginning procedure." I picked up the scalpel, its weight familiar and comforting. One slip, one tremor, one moment of hesitation, and my mother would die under my hands. "Ready?" Nathan asked. I thought of the letter in my pocket, of Dad's dismissal, of Paige's wedding, of every moment I'd been told this was too much for a girl. "Dr. Newton," the nurse prompted, "are we proceeding?" I looked at my steady hands, at the tools I'd mastered despite every obstacle, at the team waiting for my command. "Let's see," I said, making the first precise incision. "If I'm really too much for a girl, the surgery that would either save my mother or prove them right was officially underway. And for the first time since I'd walked out of that dinner 10 years ago, I felt completely, absolutely certain. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about being exactly who I was meant to be, too much, too ambitious, too female, too perfect for them to handle. And I was just getting started. "Suction!" I commanded, my eyes fixed on the microscopic vessels beneath my hands. 6 hours in, and every movement had to be perfect. 1 millimeter too far in any direction would mean death. The memory of Dad throwing away my toy stethoscope flashed through my mind. "Girls play with dolls, Sarah." "BP dropping," a nurse called out. "I see it," I replied, my hands steady. This was the critical moment, the one other surgeons had deemed impossible. Nathan stood ready. "Want me to take over?" "No." My voice was steel. "This is my procedure." Another memory, Mum catching me reading medical journals at 13. "Wouldn't you rather look at fashion magazines, dear?" "Pressure's still dropping," the nurse warned. I could feel the tension in the room. Everyone knew this was the moment where most surgeons would back off, close up, admit defeat. I wasn't most surgeons. "Additional blood products," I ordered, "and get me the micro forceps." "Sarah," Nathan cautioned, "if we lose this vessel—" "We won't." My hands moved with practiced precision, finding pathways where others saw only obstacles. Every late-night study session, every extra rotation, every moment of proving myself led to this. "Pressure stabilizing," the nurse announced. I allowed myself a small breath. Microscope adjustment, 2 degrees left. The memory of Paige's wedding surfaced, me watching from a distance as my education fund paid for ice sculptures and dove releases. "Starting the final anastomosis," I announced. This was the part that had made other surgeons balk. The connection had to be perfect, had to hold against impossible odds, just like me. "Jesus," Nathan whispered as he watched my hands work. I've never seen anything like this." "That's because no one else would try it," I replied, completing the final suture. "Numbers?" "Pressure normal, perfusion improving. It's working." I stepped back, allowing myself to really look at what I'd accomplished. "Close her up. Standard protocol." Nathan's eyes were wide behind his surgical mask. "Sarah, what you just did, that's going to rewrite textbooks." "I know," I said simply, because I did know. I'd just done what every other surgeon had declared impossible, what my father had said was too much for a girl. 3 hours later, I walked into the waiting room. Dad jumped up, Paige clutching his arm. "She's alive," I said before they could speak. "The surgery was successful. She'll need extensive rehabilitation, but she'll recover." Dad's legs gave out. Paige started crying. Through the window, I could see the sun setting. We'd been in surgery for over 12 hours. "Can we see her?" Paige asked. "In recovery, 1 at a time, 10 minutes each." Dad stepped forward. "Sarah, thank you. I was wrong. About everything. I'm so—" "Stop." My voice was quiet but firm. I didn't do this for you. I did it because I'm the best at what I do, because this is exactly who I was meant to be, with or without your approval. But surely now, for Thanksgiving at least. No. I pulled off my surgical cap. I'm not coming to Thanksgiving. Not now, not ever. I'm not your daughter anymore. I'm the surgeon who saved your wife, that's all. Sarah, please, Paige tried to hug me. I stepped back. Don't. This doesn't fix anything. It just proves I was right all along. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Mum's jewellery collection? Tell her to expect a call from my lawyer. That scholarship fund for female medical students isn't going to start itself. Nathan was waiting outside. That was kind of harsh. That was kind of perfect, I corrected. Now I need a drink. We headed to the hospital bar where Wren was waiting. She raised her glass. To the impossible surgeon. To being too much, I replied, clinking glasses. Your father looked destroyed, Nathan observed. Good. I took a sip. Let him feel what I felt when he destroyed my dreams. Except I'm giving him something he doesn't deserve. His wife back. And the scholarship fund, I smiled. That's not revenge, that's justice, for every girl told she's reaching too high, dreaming too big. My phone buzzed, messages flooding in as word of the surgery spread through medical circles. Tomorrow there would be papers to write, techniques to document, a whole new chapter of surgical history to record. But tonight I just sat there, feeling the weight of a decade's worth of anger finally begin to lift. I hadn't just saved my mother, I'd saved myself. From doubt, from their limitations, from the small life they'd tried to force me into. You know what the best part is, I told Wren and Nathan. Tomorrow, some little girl somewhere will read about this surgery, and when someone tells her she's reaching too high, she'll know better, because I proved them wrong. I raised my glass again. To being exactly what they feared, successful, unstoppable, and absolutely, perfectly too much. Dr. Newton! Reporters swarmed as I left the hospital. Can you comment on the revolutionary surgery? Is it true no other surgeon would attempt it? How does it feel to save your own mother? I pushed through them, Wren and Nathan flanking me like bodyguards. The story had exploded overnight. Local girl returns home to perform impossible surgery, saves mother who denied her dreams. Sarah, Dad's voice cut through the chaos. He stood by my rental car, holding a familiar wooden box. I'm leaving, I said flatly. I know. He held out the box. But you should have this first. Inside was my childhood plaque, the one they'd never acknowledged. Awards, certificates, newspaper clippings about my achievements. He'd kept them all. I was wrong, he said quietly, and I was afraid, because you were everything I could never be. Brave enough to defy expectations. Keep it, I replied, closing the box. I don't need reminders of what you didn't support. Please, he tried again. Your mother's asking for you. My patient is in recovery. She'll be monitored by the resident team. That's not what I... Yes, it is. I met his eyes. You wanted the best surgeon. You got her. That's all this is. Paige appeared, holding papers. Here, the first payment. For your education fund. I glanced at the cheque, then handed it back. Don't bother. Mum's jewellery collection will cover it. Consider your debt paid. It's not about the money anymore, is it? She asked softly. It never was. Nathan touched my arm. Our flight's in an hour. Sarah, wait. Dad's voice cracked. You were right back then. It was too much, but not for you, for me, for all of us. We couldn't handle seeing you become more than our small minds could imagine. I turned back one last time. You know what's funny? I used to dream about this moment, about proving you wrong so completely you'd have to admit it. But now? I smiled, and it felt like freedom. Now I don't care what you think at all. In the airport terminal, Nathan grabbed my hand. You okay? Better than okay. I pulled out my phone, showing him the emails flooding in. Other hospitals, research facilities, medical journals, all wanting to know more about the surgery, the technique, the surgeon who dared the impossible. They're calling you a pioneer, Wren said, scrolling through news articles. They're calling me a miracle worker, I corrected. But really, I'm just a girl who was told no too many times. My phone buzzed, a message from Ray, my hospital administrator. "Board meeting tomorrow, time to discuss that department head position you deserve." "See?" I showed them the message. "Being too much pays off." "Speaking of paying off," Wren said, "I've already drafted the Scholarship Foundation paperwork. The Newton Fund for Women in Medicine has a nice ring to it." I shook my head. "No, call it the Too Much Foundation, for girls who dream beyond expectations." The flight began boarding. As we stood up, Nathan hesitated. "You really never going back?" "Never needed to." I shouldered my bag. "Everything I am, I built without them. Everything I'll become, I'll build the same way." Through the terminal window, I could see reporters still gathering, hungry for the story of the prodigal daughter's triumphant return. But they had it wrong. This wasn't about coming home. This was about finally, completely leaving it behind. "You know what the hardest cut is in surgery?" I asked as we walked to the gate. "It's not the first one. It's the last one, the one that either heals everything or ruins it all." "And yesterday?" Wren asked. "Which was that?" "Neither." I handed over my boarding pass. It was just me being exactly who I was meant to be, no more, no less. As the plane took off, I thought about that dinner 10 years ago, about the untouched wine glass and the shattered dreams, about how they thought they were ending my story, when really they were just giving me the first line of a better one. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Paige. "Mum's awake. She's asking if you'll take more patients like her. I told her you're already booked saving other people's daughters." I smiled, turned off my phone and looked out at the clouds. Let them wonder, let them worry, let them finally understand what they lost when they tried to make me smaller. Because I wasn't just a surgeon now. I was living proof that sometimes being too much is exactly enough. And somewhere out there, another girl was reading about my surgery, dreaming of scalpels and science, refusing to be less than everything she could become. That was the real victory. That was the perfect revenge. That was the truth they could never diminish again. I was too much, and I was just getting started.
Sarah Martinez smoothed down her simple blue dress as she walked into the Grand Plaza Hotel, her heart beating with anticipation. Today was her daughter Emma's wedding day, and despite everything, she couldn't help but smile. The lobby gleamed with marble and crystal, exactly the kind of venue her future son-in-law's family would choose. "Mom." Emma's voice rang out across the lobby. Sarah turned to see her daughter, still in her regular clothes, hurrying toward her. "You made it." But there was something tight about Emma's smile, a tension in her shoulders that Sarah recognized all too well. "Of course I made it, sweetheart. I wouldn't miss your big day." Sarah reached out to hug her daughter, but Emma took a small step back, her eyes darting around the lobby. "Mom, I need to tell you something," Emma began, wringing her hands. "James's family, they've made some changes to the seating arrangements." Sarah's stomach tightened. She'd been expecting something like this ever since James's mother, Patricia Thompson, had taken over the wedding planning. "What kind of changes?" "They've moved you to the back table," Emma said quickly, the words tumbling out. "Near the kitchen entrance. Patricia says it's because of the photographer's setup, but..." She trailed off, unable to meet her mother's eyes. Before Sarah could respond, a sharp voice cut through their conversation. "Emma, what are you doing down here? We need you in the bridal suite immediately." Patricia Thompson strode across the lobby, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor. Her eyes swept over Sarah with barely concealed disdain. "Oh, you're here." Sarah straightened her spine. "Hello, Patricia. The hotel looks lovely." Patricia's lips curved into a cold smile. "Yes, well, we wanted everything to be perfect for James and Emma. Speaking of which," she turned to Emma. "Darling, your hair appointment was scheduled for 10 minutes ago. You don't want to keep everyone waiting." Emma hesitated, looking between her mother and future mother-in-law. "Mom, I'm sorry about..." "Go on," Sarah said gently. "It's your day. Don't worry about me." As Emma hurried away, Patricia's facade dropped. "Listen," she said, her voice low and cutting. I know Emma insisted on having you here, but let's be clear, you don't fit in with our crowd. The Thompsons have a certain reputation to maintain. Sarah kept her voice steady. I'm here for my daughter. Yes, and you can support her from the back of the room. We don't need your modest circumstances ruining the wedding photos. I'm sure you understand. Patricia's smile was sharp as glass. Oh, and we've arranged for the staff meals to be served at your table. It seemed appropriate. With that, Patricia turned and walked away, leaving Sarah standing alone in the vast lobby. For a moment, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of the humiliation. She thought about the extra shifts she picked up at the hospital, working as a nurse to help pay for Emma's education. About the nights she'd spent helping Emma study for her medical school entrance exams, proud beyond words when she'd been accepted. Now her daughter was marrying into the Thompson family, owners of the largest hospital network in the state, and suddenly Sarah's decades of hard work meant nothing. She found her way to the ballroom, where the wedding would take place in a few hours. The space was stunning. Crystal chandeliers caught the light, fresh flowers adorned every table, and a string quartet was setting up in the corner. But as she walked toward the back of the room, she saw it, her table, partially hidden behind a large pillar right next to the swinging kitchen doors. Mrs. Martinez? A young woman in hotel staff uniform approached her. I'm Jenny from Event Services. We were told you'd be seated here. Sarah nodded, noticing the sympathy in Jenny's eyes. That's right. The thing is, Jenny lowered her voice, glancing around. I wanted to let you know, while the staff here, we all know who you are. My sister was at County General last year when you worked that terrible 30-hour shift during the crisis. You saved her life. Sarah blinked in surprise. She remembered that night. A massive pileup on the highway had overwhelmed the hospital. She'd stayed long past her shift, working until she could barely stand. Jenny continued, we think it's wrong how they're treating you, and we wanted you to know, if you need anything, just ask. The whole staff is on your side. For a moment, Sarah stood there, processing Jenny's words. Then she remembered something that could change everything. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. Actually, she said, a small smile playing at her lips, there is something you could help me with. But first, I need to make a call. As she dialed a familiar number, Sarah watched the Thompson family sweeping through the ballroom, directing staff and making demands. Patricia was at the center of it all, gesturing dramatically about some perceived flaw in the table settings. Hello, Marcus. It's Sarah Martinez. Remember that favor you owe me? I think it's time to cash it in. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of activity. Sarah watched from her corner as the ballroom filled with guests, all dressed in designer clothes and dripping with jewelry. She couldn't help but notice how the Thompson family greeted each arrival with elaborate embraces and air kisses, at least until they spotted her. Is that her? She overheard one woman whisper to Patricia, the mother who works as a nurse. Patricia's response was just loud enough to carry. Yes, unfortunately. But don't worry, we've managed to keep her out of sight. Can't have anything spoiling James's big day. Sarah checked her watch. Any minute now. The first sign that something was wrong came when Jenny and 3 other servers suddenly removed their uniforms, revealing street clothes underneath. They walked straight through the middle of the ballroom and toward the exit. Where are you going? Patricia called out, her voice sharp. We haven't even served the appetizers. Jenny turned, her head held high. We quit. Before Patricia could respond, more staff members began following suit. The bartenders packed up their tools. The valet parking attendants walked off their posts. Even the wedding coordinator closed her laptop and headed for the door. What is the meaning of this? Patricia's face had turned an interesting shade of red. You can't just leave. We have a contract. Actually, a deep voice said from the doorway, they can. Marcus Chen, CEO of the hotel chain, walked into the ballroom. His presence commanded immediate attention, and Sarah had to suppress a smile as she watched Patricia's expression shift from anger to confusion to desperate charm. Mr. Chen. Patricia hurried forward. There must be some mistake. We booked this venue months ago, and now your staff is following my direct orders. Marcus finished for her. He turned to address the crowded room. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize, but the Grand Plaza will not be able to host this event today. All staff have been instructed to cease operations immediately. The ballroom erupted in chaos. Guests began murmuring. James's father was shouting about lawyers, and Emma, poor Emma, looked like she might faint. Mom, Emma made her way through the crowd to Sarah's side. What's happening? Before Sarah could answer, Marcus spotted her and smiled warmly. Sarah, there you are. Patricia's head whipped around so fast Sarah worried she might hurt herself. You know each other. Know each other? Marcus laughed. Sarah Martinez saved my daughter's life last year. Spotted a rare condition that every other doctor had missed. Stayed with her through the night, monitoring her personally. He turned to Sarah. I told you then. Anything you need, anytime. I meant it. The pieces were starting to fall into place for the guests. Sarah could see the dawning horror on Patricia's face as she realized her mistake. But more than that, Marcus continued, his voice carrying across the now silent room. Sarah Martinez sits on the board of directors for our hospital group's charitable foundation. She's been instrumental in directing millions in funding to underprivileged communities. When she called to tell me how she was being treated at her own daughter's wedding, he shook his head. Well, let's just say the Grand Plaza doesn't associate with that kind of behavior. Emma stared at her mother, tears in her eyes. Mom, I had no idea. Why didn't you ever say anything? Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand. Because I wanted you to make your own way, sweetheart. I never wanted my connections to influence your choices. She paused, looking around the room. But I also won't let anyone treat us like we're beneath them. This is ridiculous. Patricia's voice was shrill. You can't just shut down our wedding. Do you know how much we spent? Oh, I'm not shutting it down, Sarah said calmly. She nodded to Marcus, who gestured to the staff waiting by the doors. They began wheeling in new serving carts, and fresh teams of waiters entered the ballroom. I'm taking over. Patricia's mouth opened and closed soundlessly as Sarah continued. The wedding will proceed, if Emma and James still want it to, but under new management and new seating arrangements. James, who had been watching everything unfold in stunned silence, finally stepped forward. Mrs. Martinez, I'm so sorry. I had no idea my parents were treating you this way. He turned to Emma, and I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you and your mom sooner. Emma looked between her fiancé and her mother, tears streaming down her face. Mom, I'm sorry too. I should have said something. No more apologies, Sarah said firmly. This is still your day. Let's make it a good one. She turned to the gathered guests. Everyone who'd like to stay and celebrate Emma and James's wedding is welcome, as long as they understand that in this room, everyone is equal. Everyone is family. The transformation that followed was remarkable. The Thompson family, thoroughly humbled, retreated to quiet corners. The other guests, free from the atmosphere of judgment and pretense, began to relax. And Emma was glowing with pride as she looked at her mother. As the ceremony began, slightly delayed but more genuine than it would have been, Sarah took her seat in the front row. Jenny, who had changed back into her uniform along with the other staff, caught her eye and winked. Sarah smiled, thinking about how different this day had turned out from what she'd expected. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't about getting even. It was about standing up and showing your true worth. But there was still one more surprise in store for everyone. As the reception began, Sarah watched the transformed atmosphere with quiet satisfaction. The string quartet played softly in the background while guests mingled freely, the former social hierarchies forgotten in the wake of the afternoon's revelations. Patricia Thompson sat at a table near the kitchen doors, the very one she'd assigned to Sarah, looking thoroughly deflated. Her husband Richard kept checking his phone, no doubt trying to assess the social damage of the day's events. Sarah almost felt sorry for them, almost. Mrs. Martinez? James approached her table, looking nervous but determined. Could we talk privately for a moment? Sarah nodded, following her new son-in-law to a quiet corner of the ballroom. James took a deep breath before speaking. I want you to know, he began, that I've made some decisions. I'm stepping away from my family's hospital administration position. Sarah's eyebrows rose in surprise. James, that's not necessary. It is, he insisted. I've been thinking about this for a while, actually. I went into healthcare administration because it was expected, but he straightened his shoulders. I want to go to medical school, like Emma. I want to help people directly, the way you do. A warm smile spread across Sarah's face. Emma never told me that. I never told her, James admitted. I was afraid of disappointing my parents, but after seeing you today, how you handled everything with such grace and strength, I realized I've been living my life trying to please the wrong people. Before Sarah could respond, Marcus Chen appeared at her elbow. Sarah, there's someone here who'd like to speak with you. He gestured toward the ballroom entrance, where an elegant older woman stood waiting. Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she recognized Dr. Catherine Reynolds, the current health commissioner for the state. Sarah Martinez, Dr. Reynolds said warmly, approaching their group. I'm so glad I could make it, even if I am fashionably late. Patricia and Richard Thompson, who had been watching from their table, practically tripped over themselves rushing over. Commissioner Reynolds, Patricia gushed. What an unexpected honor. Save it, Patricia. The commissioner cut her off coolly. I'm here to speak with Sarah. She turned back to Sarah with a smile. The board meeting is next week, and I wanted to discuss this in person. We've reviewed your proposal for the new community health initiative, and we're not just approving it, we're doubling the funding. The Thompsons' jaws dropped in perfect synchronization. But more than that, Dr. Reynolds continued, I'm retiring next year, and the governor has been asking for recommendations for my replacement. She gave Sarah a meaningful look. I'd like to put your name forward, if you're interested. The ballroom had gone quiet again, everyone straining to hear the conversation. Sarah felt Emma's hand slip into hers. She hadn't even noticed her daughter approaching. Mom, Emma whispered, you never told me about any of this. Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand. I've always believed that our work should speak for itself. All those nights I was just working extra shifts. I was also building relationships, creating programs, finding ways to help more people. I never needed the recognition. I just wanted to make a difference. And that, Dr. Reynolds said firmly, is exactly why you're perfect for the position. Patricia Thompson looked like she might faint. But she's just a nurse. Just a nurse? Dr. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. Mrs. Thompson, just a nurse. Sarah Martinez has done more for healthcare in this state than your entire family's hospital network. While you were planning galas and worrying about social status, she was actually saving lives and changing the system from within. James stepped forward. Commissioner Reynolds, I'd actually love to hear more about the Community Health Initiative. I'm planning to apply to medical school. Patricia interrupted, her voice shrill. But you're supposed to take over the family business. No, Mother, James said firmly. I'm going to make my own way, just like Emma did, just like Mrs. Martinez taught her to do. The reception continued into the evening, but with a distinctly different tone than anyone had expected. The Thompsons retreated to their table, their social cards thoroughly played. Meanwhile, Sarah found herself surrounded by guests eager to discuss her work and vision for the future of healthcare in their state. As she watched Emma and James share their first dance, Sarah reflected on how differently this day had turned out from what she feared. She hadn't set out to humiliate the Thompsons or prove her worth. She'd simply refused to be diminished by their prejudice. Jenny appeared at her side with a glass of champagne. You know, the young server said with a grin. When my sister told me about the nurse who saved her life, she said you were some kind of angel. I think you might actually be a ninja. Sarah laughed, accepting the champagne. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about standing tall and letting your actions speak for themselves. Later that night, as the reception was winding down, Emma found her mother alone on the hotel's terrace, looking out at the city lights. Mom? Emma's voice was soft. I'm so sorry about everything. Not just today, but I've been pulling away from you, trying to fit into James's world. I forgot who I am, who you taught me to be. Sarah turned to her daughter, seeing not the bride in her expensive gown, but the little girl who used to fall asleep reading medical textbooks because she wanted to be just like her mom. You never have to apologize for trying to find your way, Sarah said, pulling her daughter into a hug. But remember, your value isn't in who you marry or what family you join. It's in what you do, how you treat people, and the difference you make in the world. Emma wiped away a tear, careful of her makeup. I know that now, more than ever. She paused, then added with a small smile, Health Commissioner Martinez. Sarah laughed. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Why not? After today, I'd say anything is possible. As they stood there, mother and daughter looking out at the city together. Sarah felt a deep sense of peace. The Thompsons had tried to put her in her place, not realizing that she had built her own place, one of respect, dignity, and real accomplishment. The next morning, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "The staff can't stop talking about yesterday. You've become a legend at the Grand Plaza." Sarah smiled as she typed her reply. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living your truth and letting others learn from it. As she set her phone down, Sarah thought about all the paths that had led to this moment. Years of hard work, quiet dedication, and unwavering integrity had built a foundation that no amount of social snobbery could shake. The Thompsons had seen her as just a nurse, not realizing that every life she touched, every program she built, and every relationship she forged had created a legacy far more valuable than their superficial status. In the end, she hadn't needed to destroy them. She'd simply needed to stand in her own light and let the truth illuminate everything else. And as she prepared for another day at the hospital, commissioner's nomination or not, she still had patients who needed her. Sarah Martinez smiled, knowing that sometimes the greatest victory isn't in proving others wrong, but in proving yourself right. The crystal champagne glasses clinked as my stepmother, Diana, raised her third toast of the evening. "To my darling husband's retirement," she proclaimed, her designer dress sparkling under the ballroom lights, "and to selling this tired old company for something more exciting." I watched my father's face fall slightly, though he tried to hide it behind a smile. Chen Manufacturing had been his life's work, built from nothing over 30 years. Now, at his own retirement party, he was watching his trophy wife of 5 years plan its dismantling. But Diana wasn't done. Her eyes found me across the crowded room, glittering with malice. "Of course, some people thought they'd inherit this company," she said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. Poor little Alexandra, thinking Daddy would hand over a multi-million-dollar business to someone who can't even keep a relationship longer than 6 months. The room grew uncomfortably quiet. Several board members shifted awkwardly, while others pretended to be fascinated by their drinks. My father just stared at his shoes, saying nothing, as usual. "It's for the best, really," Diana continued, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Running a company requires maturity, experience, a proper family image." She patted her perfectly flat stomach meaningfully, a reminder of her recent announcement that she was trying to give my father a real heir. I felt my cheeks burn, but kept my face neutral. Let her have her moment. She had no idea what was coming. "Would you like to say something, Alexandra?" Diana asked sweetly. "Perhaps congratulate your father on his retirement and his wise decision about the company's future." I stood slowly, smoothing my black blazer. At 28, I was young for a CFO, but I earned every step up the corporate ladder. Not that Diana knew that. She thought I was just another middle manager kept around out of my father's guilt after my mother's death. "Actually," I said, my voice clear and steady, "I do have something to say." Diana's smirk widened as I walked to the center of the room. She probably expected tears, pleading, maybe even a scene. Instead, I pulled out a thick envelope from my briefcase. 6 months ago, I began, addressing the whole room. Chen Manufacturing underwent a quiet restructuring. The board approved it unanimously. I glanced at several board members who nodded slightly. My father transferred majority ownership to a new holding company. Diana's smirk faltered slightly. My father finally looked up, confusion crossing his face. "The holding company is called MLW Enterprises," I continued, enjoying the way Diana's perfectly made-up face scrunched in confusion. "MLW stands for Mary Louise Wong, my mother's name." Now Diana's champagne glass was shaking slightly. "What are you talking about?" she demanded. I opened the envelope and began laying out documents on the nearest table. "These papers show that I own 67% of Chen Manufacturing through NLW Enterprises. My father retains 30%, and the remaining 3% is divided among key employees." The room erupted in chaos. Diana lunged for the papers, her expensive manicure scratching at the legal documents as if she could make them disappear. "This is impossible," she shrieked. "James, tell her this is impossible." But my father was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in years. "It's all legal, Diana," he said quietly. Alexandra earned this. She's been practically running the company for the past 2 years while I've been distracted. He looked at me apologetically. But, Diana sputtered, her face turning an alarming shade of red beneath her makeup. We had plans. The house in the Hamptons, the yacht club membership. About that, I said, pulling out another document. As majority owner, I've been reviewing all company expenses, including the rather generous consulting fees being paid to your brother's fake marketing firm, and the business trips that somehow always ended up at luxury spas. Diana went pale. You wouldn't dare. I already have. The board has approved a full audit. The police are very interested in some of the more creative accounting you and your brother arranged. James. Diana whirled on my father. Are you going to let her do this to me, your wife? My father stood straighter than I'd seen him stand since my mother died. My late wife, Mary, helped me build this company, he said firmly. She made me promise it would go to our daughter when the time was right. Alexandra has proven herself more than capable. And you, he shook his head sadly, you proved yourself too, just not in the way you intended. Diana's carefully constructed world was crumbling. Her designer purse fell open as she grabbed for her phone, spilling its contents across the floor. Among them was a small USB drive that I recognized, one that had gone missing from my father's office months ago, containing proprietary company designs. Looking for a buyer for our trade secrets? I asked quietly, picking up the drive. That would explain all those lunch meetings with our competitors. Diana's face contorted with rage. She raised her hand as if to slap me, but my father caught her wrist. Security will escort you out, I said calmly. Your personal belongings will be shipped to you, after they're checked for any other company property, of course. And Diana? I smiled sweetly, channeling her own fake sympathy. Don't worry about the prenup. It has a lovely clause about corporate espionage. As security led a screaming Diana away, the room buzzed with excitement. Board members came to congratulate me. Employees who'd suffered under Diana's reign looked relieved, and my father. My father pulled me into a tight hug. I'm so sorry, Alex, he whispered. I've been such a fool. Your mother would be so proud of you. I hugged him back, breathing in the familiar scent of his aftershave. I know, Dad. I know. But our moment of reconciliation was interrupted by an urgent call. Diana's brother had been caught trying to delete files from the company servers, and something told me this was just the beginning of the storm. I touched my mother's old wedding ring, which I wore on a chain around my neck. Ready for this, Dad? He squeezed my shoulder. Lead the way, CEO. As we walked to the elevator, I could still hear Diana's shrieks from the lobby, but I wasn't worried. I'd learned from the best, my mother's business acumen, my father's innovation, and yes, even Diana's cutthroat ambition. They'd all taught me valuable lessons. Now it was time to show them exactly what those lessons had created. The morning after the retirement party, I arrived at Chen Manufacturing earlier than usual. The sun hadn't even risen, but I found my father already in his office, sorting through years of memories. Couldn't sleep either? I asked, helping him pack a framed photo of him and Mom at the company's grand opening. Been thinking about your mother, he said softly. She always said you had her business instincts. Watch out for that girl, she'd tell me. She'll outshine us both someday. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was Marcus, our head of its security. Ms. Chen, we have a situation. Multiple attempts to access our servers from unauthorized locations, and you need to see this. Within minutes, I was staring at my computer screen in disbelief. Someone had leaked confidential company emails to our biggest competitors. But these weren't just any emails. They were carefully selected to make it look like Chen Manufacturing had been engaging in corporate espionage. Diana, I muttered. She's trying to trigger an industry investigation. That's not all, Marcus said grimly. She's also leaked evidence suggesting your takeover was illegal. The press is already picking up the story. Right on cue, my phone exploded with notifications. Tech Harris in hostile takeover scandal, read one headline. Family drama threatens industry giant, declared another. Dad lips stricken. Alex, I'm so sorry. If I hadn't brought Diana into our lives. No, Dad, I cut him off. This isn't your fault. But I know whose fault it is. I pressed the intercom. Janet, call an emergency board meeting. And get me Victoria Chen on the line. Your cousin the federal prosecutor? Dad asked, surprised. I smiled grimly. Diana wanted to play dirty. Time to show her what that really means. The next few hours were chaos. Diana had gone on a morning news show, playing the part of the concerned wife perfectly. "I just want to protect my husband's legacy," she said tearfully. "Alexander's hostile takeover has devastated him. And now with these allegations of corporate espionage." But Diana had made one crucial mistake. In her rush to destroy me, she'd used the stolen USB drive to access company files, leaving a clear digital trail. "Got her," Marcus announced triumphantly. "Every unauthorized access, every leaked document, it all traces back to her brother's IP address." And he grinned. "We found something else. Emails between Diana and our biggest competitor, dating back months before she married your father." The pieces clicked into place. She targeted Dad from the beginning, I realized. The whole marriage was a corporate raid. "The oldest trick in the book," Dad said quietly, and I fell for it completely. Just then, my cousin Victoria called back. After hearing the situation, she was silent for a moment. "You know," she said finally, "we've been investigating Diana's brother's firm for months. Tax fraud, money laundering. But we could never prove where the money was coming from. This could be exactly what we need." "Do it," I said firmly. The next day, as Diana was preparing for another TV interview to slander me, federal agents raided her brother's office. By evening, both siblings were in custody, and the truth was splashed across every business news channel. Corporate revengestory. CEO's wife arrested in manufacturing espionage scandal. Family feud reveals years-long corporate conspiracy. Young CEO saves family company from hidden takeover. But the real satisfaction came when we found Diana's prenup violation clause was just the tip of the iceberg. The federal investigation revealed offshore accounts, shell companies, and a pattern of targeting wealthy business owners for marriage scams. 7 other victims, Victoria told me. All wealthy men, all with valuable companies. You and your father were supposed to be number 8. In the end, Diana and her brother faced federal charges for corporate espionage, fraud, and money laundering. The evidence was overwhelming. But before they were led away, I visited Diana in custody. "How?" she demanded, her designer outfit replaced by an orange jumpsuit. "How did you know what I was planning?" I pulled out an old photo, my mother at my age, standing proudly in front of Chen Manufacturing, because my mother dealt with people like you all the time. She taught me to spot the vultures circling our company. That's why she made Dad promise to train me properly to protect her legacy. I leaned closer. "You never had a chance, Diana. You were playing checkers. I was playing chess." 3 months later, Chen Manufacturing was stronger than ever. Our stock price had soared after the scandal, as clients appreciated how we'd handled the crisis. Dad was truly retired now, traveling the world and sending me postcards from places Mom had always wanted to visit. As for me, I hung Mom's photo in my office, the CEO's office, right next to the latest company achievement, innovation in leadership. Alexander Chen named youngest CEO of the year. But my favorite moment came during a charity gala when I overheard 2 society women gossiping. "Did you hear about James Chen's daughter? The one who exposed that gold diggers conspiracy. They say she's twice as brilliant as her mother was, and 3 times as ruthless when crossed." I smiled, touching Mom's ring around my neck. They had no idea. In business, as in life, the best revenge isn't serving it cold. It's building something so strong that no one dares to try destroying it again. Dad called that evening from Greece. "Your mother would be so proud," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Not just of the company, but of who you've become." Looking out over the city from my office window, I thought about everything, the lessons, the loss, the victories. "I learned from the best," I replied. "Both of you." After all, that's what real family legacy is about. Not the money or the company, but the strength to protect what matters, the wisdom to spot true from false, and the courage to fight for what's yours. Diana had wanted to play games with our company. Instead, she'd helped make me exactly the CEO Chen Manufacturing needed, one who could spot a threat from a mile away and handle it with the perfect mix of grace and steel, just like Mom would have done. Growing up in a family of restaurateurs, I quickly learned that food was more than just nourishment. It was an art form, a legacy, and a powerful way to bring people together. My grandmother's small noodle shop in Chinatown had sustained our family for 3 generations. Watching her expertly craft dishes in the tiny kitchen shaped my understanding of the world. "Remember, May," she'd say, her hands skillfully folding dumplings. "Good food comes from the heart, not just the ingredients." I'd internalized those words, spending countless hours in the kitchen, absorbing not only recipes but the business wisdom that had helped our family navigate tough times. What no one knew was that I was also pursuing an online MBA, studying late into the night after the restaurant had closed. During the day, I mastered the delicate balance of flavors and the importance of fresh ingredients. At night, I delved into market analysis, business strategy, and corporate finance. My ambition extended beyond running a restaurant. I aimed to revolutionize the food industry. Then, I met James. He walked into our restaurant one rainy Tuesday evening, seeking refuge from the storm. Tall, impeccably dressed, and distinctly out of place, he immediately caught my attention. "What would you recommend?" he asked, water dripping from his expensive coat. "Our hand-pulled noodles with braised beef," I replied without hesitation. "It's perfect for a night like this." He smiled, a smile that made my heart skip a beat. "I trust your judgment." 20 minutes later, I watched as he took his first bite. His eyes widened in surprise, then closed in delight. When they opened again, they locked onto mine. "This is incredible," he said. "I've never tasted anything like it." That moment marked the beginning of our story. James became a regular, visiting 3 times a week, always trying something new. Our conversations began with food but quickly expanded to everything else. He worked in finance at a major investment firm, while I shared stories about the restaurant, carefully omitting my MBA and larger ambitions. 6 months later, he proposed, simple and intimate, just us in the restaurant after closing, over a bowl of the noodles he first tasted. Meeting his family was a different story. The Chens were old money, with a business empire encompassing restaurants, hotels, and real estate. James's father, Richard Chen, was CEO of Chen Global Hospitality, one of Asia's largest luxury hotel and restaurant groups. His mother, Victoria, embodied old-world elegance, while his sister, Amanda, was the company's director of operations. From the start, it was clear I didn't fit their ideal image of a daughter-in-law. A small restaurant? Victoria's perfectly manicured eyebrows arched during our first meeting. How quaint. Amanda's disdain was more overt. "James, you can't be serious. We're Chens. We own restaurant chains, not street food stalls." James squeezed my hand under the table but remained silent, a red flag I chose to overlook. The engagement dinner was a subtle exercise in humiliation. Held at the Chen's flagship restaurant, the Imperial Palace, it was clear they viewed me as an outsider. "May, dear," Victoria called across the table, "it's fascinating that you work in food service. Do you cook everything yourself, or do you have actual chefs?" Before I could respond, Amanda added, "Mother, be kind. I'm sure she does her best with what she has. Not everyone can afford proper culinary training." Drawing on years of customer service experience, I maintained my composure. "I trained under my grandmother." "Whoa. Oh, how sweet," Victoria interrupted. "Family recipes. James, remember our cooking class in Paris with the Michelin-starred chef?" James chuckled uncomfortably. "Mother, please." But the most painful part wasn't their condescension. It was James's silence. He never once defended me or our relationship. What they didn't know was that, while managing my tiny restaurant, I had completed my MBA with honors and developed an AI-driven food service platform poised to revolutionize the industry. My company, Food Tech Solutions, was already valued at over $3 billion, operating in stealth mode. I had kept this private, wanting to be judged for who I was, not what I owned. But as wedding preparations began, it became clear that the Chens would never accept me. The breaking point came during a family dinner at Victoria's mansion. I brought some of my signature dishes to share my heritage. Victoria wrinkled her nose at the containers. "Oh, he brought takeout." "Actually, I made these myself," I said proudly. "They're my grandmother's recipes." Amanda prodded the food with her fork. "How authentic. But for the wedding, we should stick to proper catering. We have a reputation to maintain." James, beside me, focused intently on his phone. "The wedding menu is settled," Victoria announced. "Chef Pierre from Paris will cater." We can't have street food at a Chen wedding. My food isn't. I began, but Victoria raised a hand. May, dear, understand that the Chens are more than a family. We're a brand. Your little restaurant is charming, but it's not up to our standards. After the wedding, we could help you find a more suitable occupation. My phone buzzed. It was an alert. Chen Global Hospitality's stock had plummeted 30% in after-hours trading due to leaked quarterly losses and potential fraud in their restaurant division. Victoria turned ashen. Amanda frantically typed, and Richard barked orders into his phone. James turned to me, pale. I need to go to the office. Family emergency. I stood calmly. Actually, I think I can help. Everyone froze. Help? Amanda sneered, though her voice wavered. Unless you can conjure $500 million, your noodle expertise isn't relevant. I pulled my laptop from my bag. Actually, I'd like to show you something. Victoria waved a dismissive hand. May, dear, this is hardly the time for. Food Tech Solutions, I interjected calmly, turning my laptop around to face them. Have you heard of it? The color drained from Amanda's face. Of course she had. Every major player in the hospitality industry knew about the enigmatic tech company revolutionizing restaurant operations worldwide. Richard lowered his phone, eyes narrowing. What about it? I founded it 3 years ago, I said simply. It's currently valued at $3.2 billion. And yes, Amanda, I can produce that $500 million you need, and more. A heavy silence fell over the room. James gaped at me. But you run a small restaurant. I run several things, James. The restaurant is my passion. Food Tech Solutions is where my business acumen thrives. I turned to Victoria. Those street food recipes you mocked are the foundation of an AI-driven menu optimization system now used by 5-star restaurants worldwide. Richard leaned forward, his earlier disdain replaced by keen interest. You're saying you're the CEO of Food Tech Solutions, the company every hospitality group is chasing. The same, I confirmed, pulling up our financials. We're in stealth mode but plan to go public next quarter. Our AI platform revolutionizes everything from inventory management to customer preference prediction. Something your company desperately needs right now. I gestured to Amanda's laptop, showing their dismal financial report. Victoria's hand trembled as she set down her wine glass. But why didn't you tell us? She asked, voice faltering. Would it have made a difference? I asked softly. Would it have made me more worthy of respect? More suitable as a daughter-in-law? The fact that you're even asking speaks volumes. Amanda's face reddened with anger. You expect us to believe you, a restaurant owner, built a billion-dollar tech company in secret? I displayed a screen of patents and proprietary algorithms. Your crisis stems from outdated systems and manual inventory management. These are exactly the issues my technology solves. Richard's business instincts flared. We should discuss this privately, perhaps over dinner at the Imperial. No, I cut in. We'll discuss it here, where you've belittled me for months. You've made it clear I'm not good enough for your family. James finally spoke. May, why didn't you tell me? I looked at him, a profound sadness settling in. I wanted you to stand up for me for who I am, not for what I own. But you never did. Victoria tried to recover. Darling, you must understand. We have standards. Yes, you've made those standards clear, I said firmly. Now let me set mine. Chen Global Hospitality is on the brink of collapse. I can help, but there will be conditions. Amanda's eyes darkened. Conditions? This is blackmail. No, Amanda, this is business. I stood smoothing my dress. You've treated me like I'm beneath you. Now you need my help. Can your pride handle that? Richard's tone turned conciliatory. Name your conditions. First, a complete reorganization of your management. Your leadership is incompetent. I glanced at Amanda, who sputtered indignantly. Second, full implementation of Food Tech Solutions systems across all properties. Your outdated methods are bleeding money. Third, I continued, a public acknowledgement of our partnership and the fact that I, owner of that little restaurant, saved Chen Global Hospitality. Victoria gasped. You can't expect us to. I can. Your stock is in free fall. By morning, you'll have lost half your market value. Your investors are already calling for heads to roll. James reached for my hand. May, please, let's talk. I pulled away. We need to discuss our relationship, James. The room grew silent again. You've let your family insult me, my heritage, and my work for months. You've laughed with them, sat quietly, and never stood up for me. Even tonight, your first instinct was to flee to the office instead of defending me. Tears welled in my eyes, but my voice stayed steady. I don't need a partner who only values me for my wealth. I need someone who would defend me when I had nothing. Victoria rose, her composure slipping. Now see here. No, you see here. I cut her off. I hope to be accepted for who I am. Instead, you've shown me who you are. Accept my terms and save your company or let your pride destroy it. I gathered my things, including the untouched containers of my street food. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. My team will be in touch. As I walked to the door, Amanda called out, "You can't just walk away. This is our legacy." I turned one last time, yes, and you've run it into the ground. If you had focused on innovation instead of judgment, you wouldn't be here. The last thing I saw was James's stricken face, Victoria's trembling hands, and Richard's calculating stare. Their empire was crumbling, and their only hope lay in the woman they had deemed unworthy. Sometimes, karma wears a business suit and carries recipes in takeout containers. The next morning, in my sleek penthouse office overlooking the city, I reviewed our latest ad data. My phone buzzed incessantly. Messages from James, Richard's lawyers, and finally, Victoria herself. My assistant, Sarah, entered with a fresh cup of green tea. The Chen family is in the lobby. All of them. I checked my watch. 7:30 a.m., right on schedule. Give them 10 minutes, then send them up. Those 10 minutes mattered. A negotiation lesson from my grandmother. Let them wait, she'd say. Anxiety seasons any dish. When they finally entered my office, their transformation was stark. Victoria's aristocratic poise had crumbled, Amanda's designer outfit seemed hastily thrown together, and Richard's face wore the strain of a sleepless night. James lingered at the back, looking utterly lost. "The paperwork is ready," I said without preamble, gesturing toward the documents on the conference table. "Shall we begin?" Richard stepped forward. "Before we start, I want to say—" "Save it," I interrupted. "This is a business meeting, nothing more. Your company is hemorrhaging value by the minute. Let's focus on that." For the next 2 hours, we methodically went through the terms. Food Tech Solutions would acquire a 40% stake in Chang Global Hospitality in exchange for emergency funding and the full implementation of our systems. Amanda would step down as Director of Operations, to be replaced by someone from my team. "This is highway robbery," Amanda sputtered, but Richard silenced her with a glare. "It's more than fair," I replied calmly. "You're getting cutting-edge technology, immediate financial stability, and a partnership that will elevate your market value. In return, I gain partial ownership of a company in desperate need of modernization." Victoria, who had remained unusually quiet, finally spoke. "And what about James?" I met her gaze steadily. "James is not part of this discussion. Business and personal matters should remain separate, something your family never seemed to grasp." James stepped forward. "May, please. Can we talk privately?" I considered for a moment before nodding. 5 minutes. The rest of you can review the documents with my legal team. In my private office, James paced nervously. "Why didn't you tell me about any of this?" "Would it have changed anything?" I asked. "Would you have stood up to your family sooner? Defended my little restaurant against their constant criticism?" I was trying to keep the peace. "No, James. You were choosing the path of least resistance. Each time your family insulted me, my heritage, my work, you chose silence. That silence said everything." He ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. "I love you, May. Isn't that enough?" "Love without respect isn't love, James. It's convenience." I stood up. "Your family's company is in crisis because they refuse to adapt, to see value in different perspectives. You're not so different." "Give me another chance," he pleaded. "Now that I understand." "That's the problem," I cut in. "You only want another chance because now you know I'm wealthy and successful. But I'm the same person I was yesterday, running my little restaurant with pride. If you couldn't love and respect that person, you don't deserve to know this one." Back in the conference room, the documents were ready for signing. Richard's hand trembled slightly as he signed away 40% of his family's legacy. Victoria watched with tears in her eyes, while Amanda sat stiffly, barely containing her fury. As the papers were notarized, I made one final announcement. One more thing. My grandmother's restaurant, it's not for sale at any price. It will continue operating exactly as it has for 3 generations. But surely with your resources, Victoria began. That restaurant is my heritage, my heart. It's everything you looked down on, everything you mocked. And it will remain exactly as it is. A reminder that success doesn't always wear a designer label or come with a luxury brand name. Over the next 6 months, Chen Global Hospitality underwent a complete transformation. Our AI systems revolutionized their operations, cutting costs while improving service quality. Their stock not only recovered but soared to new heights. The press loved the story. A traditional family business saved by innovative technology from an unexpected source. James sent flowers, letters, even tried to visit the restaurant. I returned the flowers, left the letters unopened, and had security politely escort him out. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. 1 year later, I sat in my grandmother's kitchen, showing her the latest financial reports. Chen Global Hospitality had doubled in value, and Food Tech Solutions was now worth over $5 billion. Ah, but how's the broth? She asked, tasting the day's soup. I smiled, understanding her point. Success wasn't about the numbers, it was about staying true to yourself, your values, your heritage. The restaurant was packed as usual, with a line stretching around the block. Victoria had come by once, months ago, presumably to make amends. She waited in line like everyone else, ate quietly in a corner, and left a generous tip. She never returned, but the gesture was noted. Amanda had moved to Europe, unable to face the humiliation of working under my management team. Richard adapted surprisingly well, finally acknowledging that tradition needed to walk hand in hand with innovation. And James, last I heard, he was dating a socialite his mother approved of. Some people never learn. As for me, I split my time between running a global tech company and making noodles in my grandmother's kitchen. Both brought me joy in different ways, both were equally important parts of who I am. The media often asked about the contrast, a billionaire tech CEO who still works in a small restaurant kitchen. They didn't understand that the restaurant wasn't just a business, it was a reminder of where I came from, who I am, and what truly matters. One evening, as I was closing up the restaurant, a young girl peeked into the kitchen. "Are you really the lady who owns all those big hotels now?" I smiled, handing her a freshly made dumpling. "No, sweetheart. I'm just the lady who makes really good noodles. Everything else is just business." The Chen family thought they were teaching me a lesson about status and worth. Instead, they learned a costly lesson about judgment and pride. Sometimes the most valuable things in life come in the simplest packages, and the most powerful people are those who don't need to prove their power. As my grandmother always said, good food comes from the heart, not just the ingredients. The same is true of success. It comes from integrity, not just assets. I still have the takeout containers from that last dinner at the Chen Mansion. They sit in my office as a reminder. Never let anyone shame you for who you are, and never compromise your values for those who can't see your worth. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't serving a cold dish, it's serving a perfectly prepared one. Seasoned with success, garnished with grace, and served with a side of karmic justice. I never expected my career choice would tear my family apart, but looking back, it was just the trigger that exposed what had been brewing beneath the surface for years. Teaching wasn't just a job for me, it was my calling. After graduating top of my class from Stanford, I shocked everyone by turning down lucrative tech offers to teach at Lincoln Public High School. My brother James supported me initially, but everything changed when he married Victoria 3 years ago. Victoria came from old money and never let anyone forget it. She worked as a marketing executive at Reynolds Technologies, one of the biggest tech companies in Silicon Valley. From day one, she made it clear she thought I was wasting my potential. "Stanford degree and you're just teaching," she'd say, wrinkling her perfectly powdered nose. "Such a waste, Sarah. You could be making 6 figures by now." I usually brushed off her comments, focusing instead on my students who needed me. Lincoln High served a struggling community, but my AP Physics students had a 98% pass rate last year. That mattered more to me than any salary. Then came the dinner party that changed everything. James and Victoria were hosting a gathering for her work colleagues at their newly renovated mansion in Pacific Heights. I almost didn't go, but James insisted. Please, Sarah. Victoria's boss will be there. It's important to her. I should have trusted my instincts. The evening started awkwardly enough. Victoria had seated me at the far end of the table, away from the important guests. I recognized several tech executives from the news, all dressed impeccably, discussing stock options and vacation homes. Sarah, darling, Victoria's voice carried across the table, dripping with false sweetness. Do tell everyone what you do. I'm sure they'd find it interesting. I straightened in my chair. I teach AP Physics at Lincoln High School. The silence was deafening. Victoria's laugh broke it like shattering glass. Can you believe it? Stanford graduate, could have been anything, and she chose to babysit teenagers in the worst school district in the city. Several guests tittered nervously. James stared at his plate, saying nothing. Teachers are just failed professionals, Victoria continued, warming to her audience. No offense, Sarah, but those who can do. Those who can't, well, you know the rest. My hands trembled under the table, but I kept my voice steady. My students. Oh, your precious students, Victoria interrupted. Face it, Sarah, you're wasting your life playing hero to kids who'll probably drop out anyway. When was the last time you made any real difference? That's when a deep voice from the doorway cut through the room like thunder. Miss Anderson. Everyone turned. A tall man in an expensive suit stood there, his presence commanding immediate attention. I recognized him instantly. Michael Reynolds, CEO of Reynolds Technologies, Victoria's boss. Mr. Reynolds, Victoria jumped up, fawning. We weren't expecting you so early. But he wasn't looking at her. His eyes were fixed on me, and to everyone's shock, they were filling with tears. Miss Anderson, he said again, his voice thick with emotion. You probably don't remember me, but my son Alex was in your class last year. The room went deadly quiet. Victoria's face turned an interesting shade of white. Alex Reynolds, I said softly, remembering the quiet boy who'd sat in the back of my class. He worked so hard. He was failing every class before he met you. Mr. Reynolds continued, walking toward me. The divorce hit him hard. Other teachers had given up on him. But you. He paused, composing himself. You stayed after school with him every day for months. You believed in him when no one else did. I felt tears prickling my own eyes. Alex was brilliant. He just needed someone to see it. He's at MIT now, Mr. Reynolds said proudly, on a full scholarship. He calls it the Miss Anderson Scholarship because he says he never would have made it without you. The silence in the room was absolute. I could hear Victoria's nervous breathing. When he told me his physics teacher's name, I couldn't believe it, Mr. Reynolds continued. I've been trying to track you down to thank you. I never expected to find you here. He turned to address the entire table. This woman isn't just a teacher. She's a miracle worker. She takes kids who've lost hope and shows them their own potential. She could have chosen an easier path, made more money, but she chose to make a difference instead. Victoria looked like she might faint. James was staring at me with a mixture of pride and shame. Miss Anderson, Mr. Reynolds said formally, I have a proposition for you, but perhaps we should discuss it somewhere more supportive. I stood up, my legs surprisingly steady. For the first time all evening, I felt truly seen. I think that's an excellent idea, Mr. Reynolds. As we walked toward the door, I heard Victoria's strangled whisper to James. Did you know? Why didn't you tell me? But I didn't stop to hear his response. Something told me this was just the beginning of a much bigger story. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing with messages from James and Victoria. I ignored them all. Instead, I focused on the business card Mr. Reynolds had given me the night before. 9 a.m., Reynolds Technologies headquarters. As I stepped into the gleaming office building, wearing my best blazer, which probably cost less than Victoria's lipstick, I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation from last night. After leaving the disastrous dinner party, Mr. Reynolds had taken me to a quiet cafe nearby. Miss Anderson, he'd said, what you did for Alex? That kind of dedication is rare. We need more of that in education. Now his assistant led me to a conference room where I found not just Mr. Reynolds, but an entire board of directors. Sarah, Mr. Reynolds smiled warmly. Thank you for coming. We have something important to discuss. But before he could continue, The door burst open. Victoria stood there, looking perfectly polished despite her obvious agitation. Michael, I can explain everything about last night. She stopped short seeing me there. What is she doing here? Mr. Reynolds' smile turned cold. Mrs. Thompson, this is a private meeting, and you're interrupting the discussion about our new $50 million education initiative. Victoria's perfectly plucked eyebrows shot up. Education initiative. Yes, Mr. Reynolds continued. We're launching a comprehensive program to transform struggling schools across the city, and we want Sarah to lead it. I sat there stunned as he laid out the details. Reynolds Technologies was creating a foundation to provide resources, technology, and support to public schools. They wanted me to be the executive director. The salary is $250,000 annually, he added casually, plus full benefits and a significant budget for program implementation. Victoria made a choking sound. But I hesitated. I'm just a teacher. No, Mr. Reynolds said firmly, you're an educator who understands what these kids really need. You're exactly who we need. Victoria's face had turned an alarming shade of red. But she's not qualified. I've been working here for 5 years. If anyone should lead a new initiative. Speaking of your work here, Mr. Reynolds interrupted, opening a folder. We should discuss some irregularities in your department's expense reports. Victoria went pale. It seems, he continued, you've been charging personal expenses as business costs. Quite substantial amounts, actually. I can explain, Victoria stammered. I'm sure you can, Mr. Reynolds said coldly. To the audit team, please clear out your desk by end of day. Victoria turned to me, her designer mask finally cracking. You planned this, she shrieked. You're trying to ruin me. Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Reynolds' voice was steel. Security will escort you out. As Victoria was led away, still shouting accusations, Mr. Reynolds turned back to me. I apologize for that interruption. Now about the position. I held up my hand. Before I accept, I need to know something. Did you really fire her because of me? He shook his head. We've been investigating her for months. Your brother's wife has been embezzling company funds to maintain her lavish lifestyle. Last night's dinner party, charged to the company, her designer wardrobe, company cards. She's been stealing for years. I thought about all the times Victoria had mocked my modest teacher's salary, all while stealing to fund her own lifestyle. There's more, Mr. Reynolds continued. Your brother should know that Victoria has been using company resources to fund a secret apartment where she meets her personal trainer. My heart sank for James. First the embezzlement, now infidelity. My phone buzzed again. Another message from James. Sarah, please. Victoria says you got her fired. What's going on? I looked at Mr. Reynolds. I need time to think about the offer, and I need to talk to my brother. He nodded understandingly. Of course, but Sarah, whatever you decide about the position, Victoria's actions have caught up with her. That's not on you. As I left the building, I saw Victoria being escorted out, carrying a box of her belongings. Our eyes met briefly. The hatred in hers was scalding. My phone buzzed once more. This time it was a text from Victoria. You've ruined everything. I'll make you pay for this. I took a deep breath and called James. It was time for some hard truths, but something told me this story wasn't over yet. Victoria wasn't the type to go down without a fight. I didn't expect to find Victoria waiting at my apartment that evening, but there she was. Mascara streaked down her face, designer outfit wrinkled, looking nothing like the polished socialite who'd mocked me just yesterday. You must be so happy, she spat as I approached my door. You've destroyed everything I built. You destroyed it yourself, Victoria, I replied calmly, though my heart was racing. The embezzlement, the affair. James knows, she cut me off, laughing hysterically. Your precious brother knows everything now. Happy. But you don't know the whole story, dear sister-in-law. Something in her tone made me pause. What are you talking about? Victoria's smile was cruel. Why do you think James never defended you? All those times I insulted you, belittled your career, he agreed with every word. You're lying, I said, but uncertainty crept into my voice. Am I? She pulled out her phone. Let me play you something interesting. A recording started playing. James's voice filled the air. Of course I love Sarah, but Victoria's right. She's wasting her potential. It's embarrassing having to explain to people that my Stanford-educated sister teaches at some poor kid's school. Sometimes I wish she'd just. I couldn't listen anymore. Turn it off. He's been lacking behind your back for years, Victoria continued. We both have. The only difference is I was honest about it. My hands trembled as I unlocked my door. Leave, Victoria. Oh, I'm leaving, she said, standing up. But first, you should know, James wasn't just aware of the embezzlement. He helped me do it. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. What? Those company funds. Half of them went to his secret trading account. He's as guilty as I am. And now, thanks to you, it's all coming out. Her smile was venomous. Congratulations, Sarah. You haven't just ruined my life, you've destroyed your brother's too. She turned to leave, then paused. By the way, I've already sent copies of all his involvement to the Reynolds Technologies legal team. They should be contacting law enforcement soon. Have fun explaining to your students why their beloved teacher's brother is in prison. After she left, I sat in my dark apartment, her words echoing in my head. My phone lit up with a call from James. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call came, Mr. Reynolds. Sarah, he said when I answered, his voice grave. We've received some concerning documents about James's involvement in Victoria's scheme. I wanted you to hear it from me first. I closed my eyes. Is it true? The evidence is substantial. I'm sorry, but we'll have to pursue legal action against both of them. I thought about my students, about Alex Reynolds, about all the kids who trusted me to guide them toward a better future. Mr. Reynolds, I said finally, about your offer. Yes. I want to accept. But I need to know, will my brother's actions affect the Foundation's work? There was a pause. Sarah, your brother's choices are his own. Just like Victoria's. What matters is what you choose to do now. I looked at the family photo on my wall. James and me as kids, smiling, innocent. With a steady hand, I took it down. When do I start? The next few weeks were a blur. James and Victoria were both arrested. The story made local headlines. Tech executive and husband charged in $1 million embezzlement scheme. I threw myself into building the Education Foundation. Mr. Reynolds was true to his word. We started implementing programs in struggling schools across the city. Every time I saw a student's face light up with understanding. Every time I helped a teacher get resources they desperately needed, I knew I'd made the right choice. 6 months later, I sat in the courthouse for James's sentencing. He turned to look at me, his face gaunt. Sarah, he started. I'm so. Save it? I cut him off. You had years to be honest with me. Focus on being honest with yourself now. As I walked out of the courthouse, my phone buzzed with a message from one of my former students. Miss Anderson, guess what? I got accepted to Stanford. Just like you. I smiled, tears in my eyes. Victoria had been wrong about everything. Success isn't measured in dollars or status. It's measured in lives changed, in potential realized, in truth spoken even when it hurts. The foundation is thriving now. We've expanded to 50 schools with plans for more. Sometimes I drive past James and Victoria's old mansion. It's been sold to pay restitution. I don't feel satisfaction, just a quiet certainty that justice has a way of finding everyone eventually. Last week, I ran into Victoria's mother at a cafe. She started to turn away, but I called out to her. Mrs. Carter, I said, I'm sorry about how things turned out. She paused, then spoke softly. Victoria called from prison. She said you were right all along. About everything. I nodded and let her go. Some victories don't need to be celebrated, they just need to be acknowledged. As for me, I still teach one AP physics class. It keeps me grounded, reminds me why we're doing all this. On my desk sits a photo of my latest class, all smiling, all full of potential. Next to it is my old nameplate, Miss Anderson, physics teacher. Below it sits my new one, Sarah Anderson, Executive Director, Reynolds Education Foundation. Turns out you don't have to choose between doing good and doing well. Sometimes if you stay true to yourself, you can do both. The key necklace Mr. Reynolds gave me at the foundation launch catches the light. Its inscription reads, Education changes everything. I touch it and smile. Victoria and James chose greed over integrity. They thought they were building something, but it was all a house of cards. I chose to build something real, something lasting. And that has made all the difference. Turning 16 was the day my world shattered, then began to rebuild. The rain lashed against the windows of our suburban house, its relentless rhythm mirroring the storm inside. Victoria, my sister, leaned casually in the corner, her lips curling into a smirk as our parents delivered the devastating news. Rachel, Mom began, her voice devoid of warmth. We've decided it's time for you to leave. She said it as though announcing a minor inconvenience, not exiling her own daughter. You're not like Victoria. You're not college material, and we can't keep wasting resources on a lost cause. Dad remained hidden behind his newspaper, as detached as ever. Meanwhile, Victoria stepped forward, the sharp click of her designer heels punctuating the silence. Don't take it too hard, little sister, she cooed, her fox sympathy unmistakable. Maybe you'll find work as a janitor. That seems more your speed. I stood frozen, my backpack clutched tightly, trying to comprehend their cruelty. The signs had been there all along. Forgotten birthdays, constant comparisons, and praise heaped on Victoria while my efforts went unnoticed. But this was beyond anything I had imagined. Victoria had always been their golden child, their prodigy. While she enjoyed private tutoring and elite dance classes, I scraped by, funding my own school supplies with part-time jobs. Even when I earned a B average despite the odds, the only response was, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" You have until tonight to pack, Mom added coldly. And don't take anything we bought. Those are family assets. I laughed bitterly. That won't be an issue. I've bought everything I own since I was 12. Victoria rolled her eyes. Always the victim, Rachel. This is why you'll never amount to anything. That night, packing my few belongings into a battered duffel bag, I vowed to prove them wrong. Not just wrong, I would succeed so spectacularly that their betrayal would haunt them forever. What they didn't know was that I'd spent the past year secretly learning to code. Every dollar I earned working at the cafe went toward online courses. My high school computer science teacher, Mrs. Chen, had seen my potential and quietly mentored me. While Victoria flaunted her Princeton acceptance, I was building a future they couldn't imagine. Instead of wandering the streets as my family probably hoped, I showed up on Mrs. Chen's doorstep. "Rachel," she exclaimed, pulling me into a warm hug. "Come in, you're safe here." The Chens welcomed me like family, their modest home becoming my sanctuary. Mrs. Chen nurtured my talent, while her husband James, who worked in tech recruitment, helped me secure an internship. From there, I poured every ounce of myself into learning, coding, and growing. By 18, I launched my first successful app, an educational platform for underprivileged students. Its impact caught the attention of TechFusion's CEO, Marcus Chen, no relation to Mrs. Chen, who offered me a role on their development team. By 26, I had become one of TechFusion's youngest executive vice presidents, managing billion-dollar projects. My achievements were public, but my name, legally changed to Rachel Chen, ensured my family remained unaware of my success. Meanwhile, Victoria followed the predictable path: law school, a prestigious firm, and a marriage to Bradley Thompson, a lawyer from old money. Mom and Dad filled their social media with her picture-perfect life, blissfully ignorant of mine. Then fate intervened. One routine day at work, my assistant buzzed in. "Ms. Chen, the representatives for the merger meeting are here. They're from Thompson, Williams and Associates." My heart skipped a beat. Victoria's firm. "Send them in," I said, adjusting my designer suit and settling into my office chair. The door opened and there she was, Victoria, poised and polished, followed by Bradley and their colleagues. The moment her eyes met mine, her expression faltered. Her Hermes bag slipped from her hand, hitting the floor. "Rachel?" she whispered, stunned. "How?" I smiled coolly. "Welcome to TechFusion. Shall we discuss the merger?" Victoria's composure crumbled as realization dawned. Her nothing of a sister sat in a corner office towering over the city, commanding a power she'd never dreamed I could hold. "This can't be real," she stammered. You're not supposed to be here." I leaned back, the weight of my triumph speaking louder than words. "Well, Victoria, I'm here. So shall we begin?" Bradley cleared his throat, attempting professionalism. "Ms. Chen, we weren't aware of your connection to Victoria." I let the moment linger, savoring the sweet taste of vindication. "No, I'm sure you weren't aware," I replied, my voice calm and sharp. Just like you probably didn't realize your firm's future rests entirely on my recommendation regarding this merger. Victoria's face, already pale, turned ghostly white. The weight of my words settled on her like an avalanche. 10 years ago, she had laughed as our parents cast me out. Now the life she built on superiority and control was dangling by a thread, and I held the scissors. The meeting that followed was one of the most satisfying moments of my life. Watching Victoria squirm under the weight of her crumbling facade felt like justice, but this was just the beginning. She had no idea what was coming next, and neither did our parents. Revenge, like success, is best served with careful planning and perfect timing. As Victoria and her team left my office, I saw the cracks forming in her once impenetrable confidence. Everything she thought she knew about herself, her power, her superiority, was unraveling in real time. This was just part one of a decade-long plan. The real blow was yet to come. News of the meeting spread quickly through her circles. Within days, whispers of my identity replaced the reverent mentions of her accomplishments. Rachel Chen, the tech genius, the prodigy on magazine covers, the self-made millionaire, was no longer just a name in the tech world. To Victoria, I was the sister she had dismissed and discarded. My phone buzzed relentlessly with calls and messages from her. 17 missed calls in a single day. Each one was a small victory, a stark reminder of the countless times my family had ignored me. Ms. Chen, my assistant Sarah's voice came through the intercom. Your sister is in the lobby again. She's insisting on seeing you. I glanced at my Rolex, a symbol of how far I'd come from that 16-year-old girl in thrifted clothes. Let her wait, I replied smoothly. I have more pressing matters to attend to. Those pressing matters included signing the final paperwork for Tech Fusion's acquisition of Thomson Williams and Associates. But not through the merger they desperately sought. This was a hostile takeover, a decisive end to their firm as they knew it. An hour later, Victoria burst into my office. Her once flawless appearance was in shambles. Her suit wrinkled, her mascara streaked from tears. Rachel, please, she began, her voice trembling. You have to talk to me. The merger, our firm depends on it. I leaned back in my chair, letting the moment stretch. Interesting. Now you need something from me. Quite the change from 10 years ago, isn't it? I was young, she protested weakly, desperation etched into her features. We all were. I didn't understand. Didn't understand what? I interrupted, my tone icy. That treating your own sister like garbage might come back to haunt you. That the person you threw away might actually amount to something. She sank into the chair opposite me, the weight of her guilt pulling her down. What do you want, Rachel? An apology? Money? Just tell me. I laughed, a sound as bitter as it was triumphant. Money? Victoria, I make more in a month than you do in a year. And as for an apology, I rose from my chair and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It's far too late for that. Mom and Dad want to see you, she whispered. They're devastated they didn't know about your success. Devastated they missed out on the money, you mean? I replied, not bothering to mask my disdain. Tell me, did they ever look for me after throwing me out? Did any of you? Her silence was answer enough. Mrs. Chen looked for me. I continued, my voice steady with resolve. She and her husband gave me a home, believed in me, and supported my dreams. They're my real family. Victoria's eyes widened in realization. He changed your name to Chen. I did, I said simply. The moment I turned 18. I wanted nothing to do with a name that brought me nothing but pain. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Marcus Chen, Tech Fusion CEO. Acquisition approved by the board. Proceed as planned. I turned back to Victoria, my expression unreadable. You'll be getting some interesting news about your firm soon. I suggest you update your resume. Her panic was palpable. What do you mean? I savored the moment before delivering the blow. Tech Fusion isn't merging with Thomson, Williams and Associates, I said, each word deliberate. We're buying it, and our first order of business is restructuring the management team. The blood drained from her face as the implications sank in. You can't do this. Bradley's family, their connections. I laughed outright this time. Bradley's country club connections. Victoria, I have dinner with senators and tech billionaires. His world is nothing compared to mine. As if on cue, her phone buzzed. Bradley's name lit up the screen. The news was spreading like wildfire. This isn't just about me, she pleaded, her voice cracking. Think about the employees, their families. Don't lecture me about caring for others, I said sharply. Unlike our parents, I don't punish innocent people for someone else's mistakes. The employees will be taken care of, but the senior partners who perpetuated that toxic culture, they're out. She stood shakily, her entire world collapsing around her. Mom and Dad will be at my house tonight, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They want to make things right. I paused, considering her words. Seeing them grovel might be amusing, but I had a better idea. Tell them to come to the Capitol tomorrow night at 8. I'll reserve a private room. After she left, I called Mrs. Chin. They took the bait, I said, satisfaction evident in my tone. Are you sure about this, Rachel? She asked gently. Revenge can feel hollow in the end. This isn't just revenge, I assured her. This is justice. And tomorrow, they'll finally understand what that means. The next evening, I sat in the Capitol's most exclusive dining room, the pinnacle of luxury. When my family arrived, their expressions were a mix of awe and discomfort. The daughter they discarded now commanded a world they could only dream of entering. Rachel, Mom began, stepping forward as if to hug me. I didn't move. Please, I said coldly, gesturing to the table. Sit. Dad cleared his throat, clearly out of his depth. We've been doing a lot of thinking, Princess. Don't, I interrupted. You lost the right to call me that the day you threw me out. Mom's eyes filled with tears, perfectly timed as always. We made a mistake, she sobbed. We were so wrong about you. The waiter approached, presenting a bottle of wine worth more than their monthly mortgage payment. I gestured for it to be poured, the sound of the cork popping slicing through the tense air. Yes, you were wrong, I said, my tone calm but unyielding. But that's not why I agreed to this dinner. Victoria shifted in her seat, her confidence unraveling. Rachel, about the firm. The acquisition is final, I replied sharply. And again, that's not why we're here. From my briefcase, I withdrew 3 folders and slid one to each of them. Open them. The silence thickened as they complied. Inside each folder were meticulously documented records, a timeline of their cruelty, from forgotten birthdays to scathing remarks, juxtaposed with financial statements, property deeds, and investment portfolios, all of it theirs. How did you get this? Dad's voice faltered as his eyes darted over the damning contents. While you were busy boasting about Victoria's mediocre achievements, I began leaning back in my chair. I was busy acquiring every debt you owed. Your mortgage, car loans, Victoria's student loans, even Dad's failing business liabilities. I own it all. Every penny you owe is now mine. The shock was palpable. Mom's hands trembled as she clutched the folder, her perfectly manicured nails denting the expensive paper. Now, I said, taking a measured sip of the wine, we're going to discuss terms. The private dining room fell into an uneasy silence. For once, they were at a loss for words. Dad, the man who once dismissed me with a sneer, finally spoke, his voice barely audible. What do you want? What I want, I said, leaning forward, is for you to understand what you threw away 10 years ago. Not just a daughter, but someone who could have been your greatest ally. Mom dabbed at her tears, her designer mascara smudging in streaks. We can be a family again, she whispered, her voice breaking. Please, Rachel, we'll do anything. Anything. I raised an eyebrow, pulling out another set of papers. Then sign this. Victoria, ever the lawyer, grabbed the document first. Her face paled as she read it. This is everything. The house, Dad's business, my trust fund. Precisely, I said coolly. Sign it all over to me and I'll erase your debts. Refuse and tomorrow, I'll foreclose on everything. You can't do this, Dad protested, his voice tinged with desperation. We'll be ruined. Ruined, I echoed, a cold laugh escaping my lips. Let me tell you about ruined. Ruined is being 16 and sleeping in a park because your family threw you out. Ruined is working 3 jobs just to afford a meal. Ruined is watching the sister who mocked you post about her perfect life while you fight to survive. Victoria's anger flared. You're better than this, Rachel. You've already won. You're wealthy, powerful. Why stoop to our level? This isn't about stooping, I said, my voice steady. This is about justice. Consequences. From my phone, I played a recording. Their voices from a decade ago filled the room, cutting through their veneer of remorse. Sneers, dismissive laughter, cruel words predicting my failure. Mom covered her mouth as if to block out the sound of her own venom. I kept this, I said quietly, pausing the recording. Every time I felt like giving up, it reminded me what I was working for. Not just success. This moment. Dad's hands trembled as he picked up the pen and signed the papers. Mom followed, her tears falling freely. Victoria hesitated, her pride warring with her fear, but eventually she signed as well. It's done, I said, collecting the documents. The apartment keys are with the maitre d'. You have until tomorrow to move your essentials. Everything else will be sold. As they stood to leave, I delivered my final blow. 10 years ago, you told me I'd never amount to anything. You were wrong. I became everything you said I couldn't, not because of you, but in spite of you. Victoria paused at the door, her voice fragile. Will we ever see you again? I considered her question. That depends on whether you learn from this. After they left, Mrs. Chen entered the room, her warm smile a balm to my hardened exterior. She hugged me tightly. Are you okay, sweetheart? For the first time in 10 years, I said, my voice lighter. I think I am. The next morning, I watched movers dismantle my old family home. Piece by piece, Victoria's perfect life unraveled. Dad's business was already undergoing restructuring, and Mom's social circle buzzed with the scandal of their fall from grace. But revenge wasn't my ultimate goal. I had something bigger in mind. The following week, I announced the creation of the Chen Foundation for Youth Empowerment. Its mission, to support abandoned and struggling teens, giving them the tools to rewrite their own stories. When I unveiled the foundation headquarters to Mrs. Chen, she cried. This, she said, her voice thick with pride, is your real victory, turning pain into purpose. She was right. The legacy I was building wasn't born from vengeance, but from hope. Each teenager who walked through the foundation's doors would find the support I once needed and received from the Chens. Months later, a letter arrived from Victoria. She wrote about her new life, working as a paralegal, living in a modest apartment, and finally understanding the value of humility. I didn't respond. Instead, I anonymously donated to the legal aid clinic where she worked, ensuring they could continue helping others. Success, I realized, wasn't just about proving my family wrong. It was about proving to myself that resilience could triumph over cruelty. My biological family may have abandoned me, but their rejection had forged me into someone unstoppable. Someone who not only survived but thrived and used that success to lift others. In the end, I had gained something far more valuable than revenge. I had found freedom, purpose, and an unshakable peace. The girl they threw away had become the woman they could never be, happy, fulfilled, and whole. I never thought I'd see my parents again after they abandoned me at age 8. That day is burned into my memory forever. Mom and Dad dropping me off at Grandma Rose's house with just a small backpack of clothes, promising they'd be back soon. We just need some time to sort things out, Emma, Mom had said, not quite meeting my eyes. Be good for Grandma. They never came back. The first few months were the hardest. Every day, I'd sit by Grandma's front window after school, watching cars drive by, hoping the next one would be them. Every night, I'd cry myself to sleep, wondering what I'd done wrong, why I wasn't good enough for them to stay. But Grandma Rose was my saving grace. You're perfect just as you are, my sweet girl, she'd tell me, wiping away my tears. Some people aren't ready to be parents, and that's not your fault. But I'm here, and I'll always be here. Grandma Rose wasn't just any grandmother. She was brilliant, sophisticated, and as I later learned, incredibly wealthy, but you'd never know it from how she lived. Our home was modest, she drove an old Toyota, and she still worked as a high school principal because she loved shaping young minds. The only hints of her wealth were her impeccable taste in art and the way she'd sometimes casually mention her investments while reading the financial papers. Under Grandma's care, I flourished. She encouraged my love of science, hired tutors when I struggled with math, and celebrated every achievement, no matter how small. When I won first place in the state science fair at 13, she threw a huge party and invited all my friends. That's my girl, she beamed, hugging me tight. You're going to change the world someday. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Grandma and I against the world. She never spoke badly about my parents, but she made sure I knew their absence wasn't my fault. Sometimes people make choices they can't take back, she'd say wisely. But those choices reflect on them, not on you. I stopped thinking about my parents, stopped hoping they'd return, stopped caring why they left. I had grandma, and that was enough. She was more than enough. Then came my 18th birthday. Grandma threw me an elegant party at her favorite restaurant, invited all my friends, and gave me a beautiful necklace, a delicate gold chain with a small key pendant. "This is more than just jewelry, Emma," she said mysteriously. "Keep it safe. You'll understand when the time comes." I didn't know then that it would be our last celebration together. 3 months later, Grandma Rose collapsed at school. By the time I reached the hospital, she was gone. Heart attack, the doctor said. Quick and painless. But the pain I felt was anything but quick. It tore through me like a hurricane, leaving nothing but emptiness in its wake. The funeral was beautiful, just as Grandma would have wanted. Her former students filled the church, sharing stories of how she changed their lives. I sat alone in the front row, clutching the key necklace she'd given me, trying to be strong like she taught me to be. That's when I saw them. My parents walked into the church like they belonged there, like they hadn't abandoned their daughter a decade ago. Mom's hair was grayer, Dad had gained weight, but I'd have known them anywhere. My heart stopped, then started racing. They made their way toward me, faces full of what looked like concern. "Emma, sweetheart," Mom said, reaching for my hand. I pulled away instinctively. "We came as soon as we heard. We're so sorry about your grandmother." Dad nodded solemnly. "We know it's been a long time, but we're here now. You'll come home with us, of course. You're still a minor for a few more months, and we're your legal guardians." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. 10 years of silence, and now they wanted to play happy family? "I'm not going anywhere with you," I managed to say, my voice shaking with anger. Grandma Rose was my home. "Now, Emma," Mom said, her voice taking on a stern edge I remembered from childhood. "Don't be difficult. We're your parents. You have no choice in this matter." Actually, a deep voice interrupted, "She has every choice." We turned to see a tall man in an expensive suit walking toward us, carrying a leather briefcase. "I'm James Morrison, Rose Montgomery's attorney, and we need to have a conversation about your grandmother's will." My parents' expressions changed instantly. Mom's eyes lit up with barely concealed interest, while Dad straightened his tie nervously. "Of course," he said smoothly. "We're her only living relatives, after all." Mr. Morrison's face remained impassive. "Let's step into the private room. There are some matters that need to be addressed immediately." As we followed him, I noticed my hand had moved to clutch the key necklace Grandma had given me. Somehow, I knew everything was about to change. Again. I just didn't realize how much. The private room at the church felt too small for the tension building inside it. Mr. Morrison sat across from us at a polished wooden table, methodically arranging papers from his briefcase. My parents flanked me like anxious vultures, trying to appear concerned while their eyes kept darting to the documents. "Before we begin," Mr. Morrison said, adjusting his glasses, "Miss Emma, would you please show me your necklace?" My parents looked confused, but I reached for the key pendant Grandma had given me. Mr. Morrison nodded, a slight smile crossing his face. "Perfect. Now let me read the terms of Rose Montgomery's will." He cleared his throat and began reading. "I, Rose Montgomery, being of sound mind, declare this to be my last will and testament." The legal language washed over me until one sentence made my heart stop. "To my beloved granddaughter, Emma Grace Montgomery, I leave my entire estate, including all properties, investments, bank accounts, and business holdings, currently valued at approximately $47 million. The room erupted in chaos. "47 million? Mom shrieked, her face turning red. "That's impossible. Rose was a school principal." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "This is ridiculous. We're her only children. You can't tell me she left everything to a teenager." Mr. Morrison remained calm. "There's more. The will specifies that Emma is to be legally emancipated immediately, with a trust established in her name. The key she wears opens a safety deposit box containing additional documents and instructions." My head was spinning. $47 million? Grandma Rose, my modest, Toyota-driving grandmother, had been worth $47 million. "This will is dated just last month," Mom said, her voice dangerous. "We'll contest it. Emma's still a minor. We're her legal guardians, and we have rights." Actually, Mr. Morrison interrupted, you surrendered those rights 10 years ago. He pulled out another document. This is a copy of the abandonment charges Rose filed against you both after you left Emma. You never responded to the court summons, so she was granted full legal custody. You haven't been Emma's guardians for a very long time. I watched my parents' faces transform. The fake concern melted away, replaced by naked greed and fury. Emma, sweetie, Mom tried again, her voice honey sweet. You don't understand what you're doing. Let us help you manage this. We're family. Family? The word felt like poison in my mouth. Where was family when you left me? Where was family for 10 years while Grandma Rose raised me? We made a mistake, Dad said quickly. We were young, struggling. But we're here now. We can make it right. Make it right? I stood up, shaking with anger. You're only here because you found out about the money. Did you even care that Grandma died? Did you ever care about me? Their silence was answer enough. Mr. Morrison cleared his throat. There's one more thing. Rose left a letter for you, Emma. He handed me a sealed envelope. She asked that you read it alone. I took the envelope and walked out, leaving my parents protesting behind me. Finding a quiet corner of the church, I opened the letter with trembling hands. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've just learned the truth about our family's wealth. I know it's a shock. I kept it secret for many reasons, but mostly to protect you and let you grow up understanding the value of hard work and kindness. I watched your parents choose money over love many times. They abandoned you because I refused to keep funding their extravagant lifestyle. They chose wealth over their own daughter, and in doing so, gave me the greatest gift, you. The key I gave you opens more than just a safety deposit box. It opens the door to your future. I've made arrangements for everything. The house is yours. Your college fund is secure. The family business awaits when you're ready. But most importantly, remember this. You are loved. Not for your inheritance, but for who you are. The same quiet strength that helped you survive being abandoned has prepared you to handle this responsibility. Don't let your parents manipulate you. They'll try, but you're stronger than they know. You're a Montgomery woman, and we don't break easily. All my love, Grandma Rose. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I finished reading. In death as in life, Grandma Rose was protecting me, guiding me, loving me. I touched the key around my neck, understanding finally flowing through me. When I returned to the private room, my parents were still arguing with Mr. Morrison about contesting a will. They fell silent when I walked in. Emma, Mom started, but I held up my hand. I want you to leave, I said, my voice steady. Both of you. You're not welcome here. Now listen here, Dad began angrily, but Mr. Morrison interrupted. Should I call security? He asked calmly. As the sole heir and property owner, Emma has the right to have you removed. They stared at me, these strangers who shared my blood, and I saw the moment they realized they'd lost. Not just the money, but any chance of manipulating me. This isn't over, Mom hissed as they gathered their things. You'll regret this. I watched them leave, feeling oddly peaceful. What happens now? I asked Mr. Morrison. He smiled. Now we visit that safety deposit box. Your grandmother left quite detailed instructions about the next steps. Shall we? As we left the church, I caught a glimpse of my parents in the parking lot, arguing furiously. They'd lost everything today. Not that they ever really had it. They'd chosen money over love once before, and that choice had finally caught up with them. I touched the key around my neck and smiled. Grandma Rose had given me more than just an inheritance. She'd given me the power to stand on my own, to face whatever came next. And something told me this was just the beginning. The safety deposit box at First National Bank contained exactly what Grandma Rose had promised, and so much more. As Mr. Morrison helped me go through the contents, I discovered just how thoroughly my grandmother had planned everything. Inside were property deeds, stock certificates, and detailed instructions about the family business. Montgomery Investments, a company I'd never even known existed. But what caught my eye was a USB drive labeled Watch Me First. Mr. Morrison pulled out his laptop and Grandma Rose's face appeared on screen. She looked healthy, vibrant. This must have been recorded just before she died. Emma, my darling girl, she began, her familiar smile warming my heart. If you're watching this, then everything has happened as I expected. Your parents showed up at my funeral, didn't they? Trying to claim what was never theirs to begin with. I gasped. Even from beyond, she'd known exactly what would happen. You see, Emma, there's something you need to know about your parents. They didn't just abandon you. They tried to steal everything from me first. Your father, my own son, and your mother attempted to transfer all my assets to their names while I was on a business trip. They thought I was just a naive school principal. They never knew I was the one who built Montgomery Investments from the ground up. She paused, her expression hardening. When I discovered their scheme, I gave them a choice. Stay and live modestly while learning the value of hard work, or leave. They chose to leave. They left you behind thinking I'd come begging them to return. They never understood that by abandoning you, they gave up the greatest treasure of all. Tears streamed down my face as Grandma continued. I watched you grow into an extraordinary young woman. Kind, intelligent, hardworking. Everything they're not. That's why I know you're ready for this responsibility. The video continued with detailed instructions about the company, the properties, and most importantly, the charitable foundation she'd established. The Montgomery Foundation provides scholarships to abandoned children. You'll be its new director. Use our wealth to help others like yourself, Emma. That's our true legacy. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Mr. Morrison introduced me to the company's board of directors, who'd all known and respected Grandma Rose. They welcomed me warmly, ready to guide me as I learned the business. My parents didn't give up easily. They hired lawyers, tried to contest the will, even attempted to prove Grandma Rose was mentally unstable when she wrote it. But she'd been too thorough. Every document was in order, every decision legally sound. Their final attempt came 3 months later. They showed up at the Montgomery Investments office, causing a scene in the lobby. "We're her parents," Mom shouted as security held them back. "She can't keep us out." I met them calmly, dressed in one of Grandma's elegant suits, the key necklace still at my throat. "Actually, I can, and I will. We'll go to the press," Dad threatened. "Tell everyone how you stole our inheritance." I smiled, channeling Grandma Rose's quiet strength. "Go ahead. Tell them how you abandoned your 8-year-old daughter. Tell them how you tried to steal from your own mother. I'm sure the press will love that story." They deflated, finally understanding they'd lost everything, not just the money, but any chance of manipulating me. "Goodbye," I said firmly. "Don't come back." As I watched them leave, I touched the key around my neck, feeling Grandma's presence with me. That evening, I approved the first round of scholarships from the Montgomery Foundation. 20 children from broken homes would get a chance at a better life. Sitting in Grandma's old office, my office now, I looked at her photo on the wall and smiled. She'd given me more than just an inheritance. She'd given me purpose, strength, and the power to help others. The old Toyota still sits in my garage, even though I could afford any car I want. It reminds me of where I came from, of the humble, hard-working woman who taught me that true wealth isn't about money. It's about how you use it to make the world better. Sometimes I wear her old principal's blazer to board meetings. The board members who knew her smile when they see it, they understand. I'm not just Rose Montgomery's heir, I'm her legacy. As for my parents, I heard they moved to another state, telling anyone who will listen about their ungrateful daughter. But their words can't hurt me anymore. I know who I am. I'm Emma Grace Montgomery, and like my grandmother before me, I choose love over money, kindness over greed, and helping others over helping myself. That's what real family does.